Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell, and I believe I have started the stream properly, so you guys should be able to see me just fine for once. Thank you all for joining me today. We'll give a couple other moments for everyone else to come in who wants to come in. And in the meantime, how are you guys doing? Do you have any questions for me before we start? We got some builds to go through, which I'm very excited to share. And before anything else, as I will repeat several times during this little stream arena, you guys made this hard for me. These were very good submissions. I had a lot of fun reading them. So huge thanks, as I will say over and over again, huge thanks to every single person who submitted to the contest. Okay, let's dive in. Hello, chat. Good to see you all. Let's take a look. Okay. Oh, Eric says, didn't yet watch Friday's video. Not at all to worry, Eric. Get around to it whenever you want. It was a bit, unusual for the channel thus far. And then, hello. Hi, Zaster. Hey, Guire. Excited to see the builds. Same. It's 6 p.m. where you are, Eric. It is noon for me right now. Scary beardy man. Yeah, I know. I normally like to be clean shaven, but my wife hates it, so I'm currently mustachioed. My mustachio has a little curl to it too. Fun. Okay. Pick and mix. How many submissions did I get? That's a great question. Let's take a look, shall we? I got, for Age of Mythology, 7 submissions. And I got, for Age of Empires 2, 14. So I think that I miscounted when I was declaring it to you guys earlier. You may notice that everyone is currently in the honorable mention category. That's because I am going to be revealing the finalists one by one as we go through today. Max says, love your stuff. Thank you, Max. Would love to see your take on Civ 7. Oh, God. Maybe. My good buddy who I have done some stuff on the channel with before, Yume Crab, is the civilization theory crafting specialist. But maybe he and I can collab once Civ 7 is properly out and builds start coming in for it. That could be fun. What do you guys think? Guy Fawkes style mustache and beard. Thank you, Zaster. I appreciate it, man. We were all disqualified. Yeah. So we're starting with everyone in honorable mentions, and then I'm going to be moving you guys out one by one into the main folder here. The finalists, that is. And then everyone else will remain. Because at the end of the day, all you guys are honorable mentions. These are genuinely super fun to read. Okay. And, did I remember to put the damn document link in the chat or in the description of the video? Please tell me I did. Let me double check. Yes, okay, good. You can check out all the finalists and honorable mentions in the link below this live stream. We are going to be skimming through all of the honorable mentions as well. And there were some entries that can't technically be considered, but rather than saying they're disqualified, I'm calling them honorable mentions because all of them were cool as hell. So we're going to be briefly touching upon all of them. I'm going to be saying some stuff that I liked about all of them because there was a lot to like. Okay, I think we're doing pretty good here. Pardon me shifting around stream windows like this from time to time. It's simply because the resolution needs change based on the document. Okay. Yes, indeed. Some of them were a little too l'avant-garde. That's precisely the right word. Okay. Finnish civilization for Age of Empires, Age of Mythology. Yeah, a lot of people have requested that. They are on my list for both games. The siege requirement does make that a little hard. I'm glad to see that the siege requirement was so challenging for you guys. That was what I was going for, because there are so many talented theory crafters among you that I knew if I just said you can submit anything you want, I'd get a shit ton of submissions. So this way, it was a way of kind of thinning it out a little bit and making it so I didn't have to deal with quite so many documents. All right. Salvete, Megas. And let's dive in. All right, guys, let's dive in. We're going to go through the finalists beginning with Age of Empires 2. I am not going to do a full review of the document. I highly encourage you guys do so, but I will be doing an overview of the documents that were sent to me, highlighting some of my favorite things. We're going to go through the finalists one by one for Age of Empires, and then we're going to do them for Age of Mythology. Then we're going to do honorable mentions. Sound good? Okay. And at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, so just under an hour from now, all of the finalist polls will pop up in my channel's community tab. So I'll remind you guys to go vote then. Okay. Let us begin with the first Age of Empires 2 finalist. Oh, let me do the drum. It is The Wari by Chumbeke. This was, without a doubt, the most surprising submission that I got. A Mesoamerican, rather South American, a pre-Columbian siege civilization that actually makes sense historically. It is not only a unusual submission, but the different mechanics fit together in such a beautiful way that it feels well and truly like a siege civ, and I'll get to why. You may notice that the doc is a little bit like Spartan, shall we say, but it is still very much serviceable and is a good indicator of how a really good idea can get you in despite aesthetics. And also, I like the kind of conversational style that he uses to go through things. Yeah, we don't have all the specific stats here, which I do like, but I think the ideas are sick. So let's go through the bonuses. Farmers drop off plus 10% food. Chumbeke does clarify this is the strongest farming bonus in the game, most likely. It does make some compensations for it. I think it's well historically grounded with potato farming and some of the innovations that the Wari in particular had. The Wari, for those who don't know, were neighbors to the Inca and later, I believe, defeated by the Inca, another of the Andean civilizations of northwestern South America. And yeah, it turns out that they actually had something more reminiscent of traditional siege warfare. Another bonus, siege units are affected by masonry and architecture, making them tanky little bastards. Battering ram line and siege tower line hold twice as many units. Doesn't sound too good until you see the rest of what they have to offer. Siege engineers available one age earlier. Funnily enough, this was the single most common bonus of all these submissions. Shocker. And they have 2 unique units we'll get to in a moment. Their team bonus is that villagers have +2 attack versus rams. I think this is on the weak side, but I get the idea, and he justifies it pretty well. So, like I said, this is a very conversational document. And as such, like I said, I'm not going to go through all of it, but to touch upon some of the big notes, right? The Wari had a ton of fortifications. And as he notes, pre-Columbian siege tactics aren't really a well-researched subject, and there's a lot of speculation about them, but it does fit better for a pre-Columbian siege civilization than pretty much anything else that we have as options in history, frankly. So potatoes, as he describes, are the cheat sheet of the agricultural world, can make them grow anywhere, and apparently the Wari pioneered techniques to preserve them. And so I actually really like his extra food drop-off thing from a historical perspective. Balance-wise, it also makes sense too. Everything else is built around siege warfare, and he says what we know about warfare talks about really crude weapons. They did roll boulders down hills, which is kind of hard to do, but they did have mantlets and most likely rams, and they even had a dubious siege tower of a pottery figurine of man in a tower-like structure. Seems like a stretch, but at least has more grounding than the war wagon and the Tirisadai. And I think is quite cool. Masonry affecting siege is an interesting one here too, describing how, first of all, they had concrete, which justifies a unique technology I'll jump back to in a moment, but also the arms race of siege warfare versus greater fortifications that started up in the Wari region. You can kind of think of it like the Mishtex that I did a build on a while back with Amiki, in that it was a very elevated territory that was very easy to fortify, and so a lot of warfare came down to taking these key choke points and strongholds. To briefly skip through the tech tree, there's one notable one, a lack of elite Eagle Warrior, but this is very important. Reason being, to scroll back up, Their Imperial Age unique technology makes the Eagle line cost no gold and instead cost more food. I love this mechanic in context with Siege. Why? Two reasons. First of all, you have a food bonus already, this amazingly strong one. Secondly, your Eagles are going to cost only food, which makes them a perfect complement to your Siege rest of your army costing wood and gold. And three, this is my favorite part, right? What is a Siege army's weakness? Onagers and bombards. What are Eagles good against? Siege weapons! And so the Eagles plus Siege is a perfect combo that, because of this technology, the resource costs check out exactly. And then there are other unique technologies, this Cyclopean masonry thing, which makes buildings regenerate HP, in reference again to the concrete that they used and how their buildings were able to survive earthquakes and natural disasters that later buildings could not. So getting back to their tech tree, archers seem like Garbaggio, right? But there's more to it than just that. They do have thumb ring, and other than that, it's crapola. But the archers still are relevant to some degree. They have the dubious Mesoamerican and pre-Columbine siege workshop, though in this case it's slightly more justified, with Siege Onager and Heavy Scorpion being a little weird, and yet still pretty much necessary for AoE2. The one interesting thing is they have a unique upgrade to the Siege Tower, which gains an attack if it is garrisoned by archers, and shoots arrows based on the number of archers inside of it. And it turns, as he puts it, one of the most useless units in the game into one of the most busted ones, because you got a mobile tower. So even though your archers are garbage, the fact that you can garrison them, I mean, post-Imperial, in Castle Age they're respectable, but in post-Imperial, you can garrison them in towers to have these brutal walking keeps, which sounds awesome. And is it speculative? Yes, but this is a hard civilization to research anyways, and according to my rules at least, the harder a civ is to research, the more speculative I let you get away with. Another note, their unique unit, the Mantlet. The Mantlet, as has been currently stated, is a light siege weapon that has a kind of close-ranged attack that specializes against cavalry, allowing it to protect the rest of your army versus the second biggest counter to siege besides onagers, namely cavalry units. Pretty cool. Maybe a bit contrived, but I think it largely works. And then for Dock, they actually had full access to the sea. That's part of what the vertical trade Imperial Age unique technology is referencing, is the connection between the mountain and ocean economies. Defenses look like this. Monastery is meh. And Blacksmith, they miss an archer armor upgrade. Plus, good university and all eco-technologies besides crop rotation. So that way they're not quite as disgusting in the farm department. They're still very, very good. Now, is this a weird build? Yes. Is it a speculative build? Yes. But not only do I think that it is more acceptable how speculative it is, not only is there actual basis to say that this could be a great example of a true pre-Columbine siege civilization, but the reason I have this build in the as a finalist is I absolutely love how elegant the mechanics tie in together. You have your farmers giving you a ton of extra food. What do you use that for? Trash eagles. What do your trash eagles do? They perfectly complement the resource cost of your siege and protect them from one of their biggest counters. You have a classic siege workshop, but the main bonuses are put towards your battering ram and your siege tower because they can hold the extra units. They can move faster. You can garrison them with eagles to make them move faster. You can garrison them with archers to make them shoot. It's so cool. It's beautifully done. I think that this is an incredibly creative design that, while odd and speculative, is 100% La Vanilla. I could not see a single thing here that doesn't fit in the game, and because of that, Chumbeke's Wari are the first, in fact, of our finalists. Woo, Chumbeke! Super duper cool. All right, second finalist. Well, before second finalist, let's briefly check in with everyone in chat if you guys have questions or thoughts. Yes, the Aymara are another that I understand. Wari, where Aymara? I guess, okay. I don't know enough about the region. Who designed them? This is Chumbeke. He is an AoE3 guy who did a video with me a little ways back. Really, really fun dude. And also a great designer. So I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that he came up with something really mechanically cool, though him dipping his toe into AoE2 is very fun. Hey there, Ivan. Good to see ya. Precursor to Portuguese. Cellular tool scale walls. Yeah, kind of like that. Very flexible civilization. Fully agree. I think it's super cool. And I kind of think that civs with Castle Age siege engineers needed to also be discounted. Kind of true. But at the same time, I think that there may be ways to get around. I think the siege engineers is not as essential to this siege design as some of the others, though I think it can still work. I might agree with you, a discount might be in order, but you can still pull off your kind of core Wari comp without it. Okay, let's move on to the second finalist. The second finalist is Aragon by Diego Ramirez. Yay, Diego! He's been a great member of our community for so long, and look at this beautifully organized document. Ha 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 ha! I love it. Now, Diego, as he often does, begins his document with a fantastic historical summary that not only does a good job of contextualizing Aragon and the Reconquista and similar elements of their history, but also helps to justify his future design choices, such as focusing on siege and navy. Again, this is a beautifully written document. I'm not going to go into too much depth right now, but I highly recommend you guys go and check it out in full. Now, moving on to his little justification of why he thinks the Aragonese deserve to be added to the game, I think this is actually quite worthy of being touched upon. One being their historical significance, which I fully agree with. Aragon is one of the most requested civilizations on my channel, and is one I fully intend on doing. But then also, he talks about the blend of siege and naval combat. Siege and navy is not only a cool combo, and one that came up a lot in this contest. A lot of you guys submitted siege and naval civilizations. But despite how many you guys submitted, it is not a common combo in-game as of now. And it has his build here has a very unique playstyle, which we'll get to. And also, of course, their historical relevance in the context of AoE2. Come on. Like, the Spanish are a ridiculous umbrella. almost as bad as the Indians, though there's a few others I'd say are even worse. So let's touch upon his bonuses before I get sidetracked by history. First of all, monks can convert without redemption and heal siege weapons and ships. That's pretty freaking cool. Not only does that immediately set the tone for the civilization, monks, ships, siege, etc., it's a strong bonus because redemption is a very valuable technology, and healing siege saves you resources and is a great frontline tool because your villagers, when they're repairing siege, are vulnerable. A monk standing a little further away is less. Second bonus, you can build astilleros, which replace the dock in feudal age. Astilleros we will get to momentarily. 3, each relic generates 5% resource gather speed for all villagers. Wow, that is quite powerful. Puts them in a similar position to the Lithuanians, again emphasizing their monks. And what pairs nicely with monks, as we all know, monks and siege. And so yes, yet again, it is an indirect tie-in that gives them a great mid-game economy bonus for when they want to start pumping out their siege weapons. Next, ballistics applies to bombard cannons and cannon galleons. This is a pretty common idea that people have pitched to me. I do kind of wish this bonus also affected siege onagers, but I don't know the historicity behind it. So for now, at the very least, I think it's quite good, and it fulfills kind of a pseudo-Portuguese role of giving you the arquebus effect without you needing to research it, but it also doesn't hit as many units. And lastly, naval and siege units return 20% of their cost when destroyed. I love this bonus. Not only is it useful and fun and feels appropriate for a team bonus without being too overpowered, I think, because God, those units are typically very expensive up front, but more notably here, this really, to me at least, depicts the back and forth of the Reconquista so nicely. I like it a lot because of that. And so, not only does this civilization really feel like a proper siege civ with these bonuses, but it also has all that nice naval utility as well. Here's his little boxy boo. He has his Almogavar as the unique unit, which we will get into later. And for unique technologies, he has Fueros, which makes town centers train villagers cheaper, and villagers get more HP. And of course, Reconquista, infantry gain HP, armor, and increase resistance to conversion. Let's touch upon his tech tree. The range, they have the naked archer, no crossbowman. Oopsies. But they do have thumb ring still, as well as hand cannoneer. No cavalry archer, which is an interesting choice. Barracks, functionally perfect besides gambesons. Unsurprising, considering infantry is kind of a sub-theme here. You're definitely intended to use your infantry to augment the rest of your monk siege push. Stable, completely generic good. That's totally serviceable stable right there. And then blacksmith, they missed the final cavalry armor upgrade, which definitely makes the stable a little bit worse and adds some texture. University is perfect, nice. Castle is perfect. Monastery is, they don't have redemption, so no buildings for them, but other than that, it's perfect. They have the dock / astillero, which is perfect. And then economy-wise, I believe they are also perfect, plus siege. So a very good tech tree. Talking a bit about their uniques, the Fueros thing costs stone, by the way, which makes it a little more textured and interesting. Makes villagers 20% cheaper, and villagers created in the Castle Age and later gain 50% HP. This might actually be kind of hard to program. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I think it might be. So that might be one of the few l'avant-garde-y things in this build, but it comes so close and would be very easy to tweak. Reconquista gives plus 10% HP, +1/+1 armor, and increased conversion resistance to infantry specifically. Perfectly serviceable technology. A bit on the expensive side, but it certainly will make you very tanky. And then the Almogavar is 60 food, 20 gold, pretty low HP and damage, but it is fast as heck, and it gains +1 attack for every 10 seconds it is in combat, stacking up to 4 times. This is another mechanic I'm not entirely sure can actually be implemented as of now, but again, it comes very close. I'm pretty sure you could get this done with triggers, even if you couldn't do it in a data mod. And it also feels quite plausible as something that could be added in an upcoming civilization. The only thing I would change about this personally is I'd make it stack faster and stack higher, because 12 attack isn't that scary and 40 seconds is a very long time. So I'd make the numbers more generous. But overall, love the idea. I think it's awesome. The Astillero, Leon, replaced the standard dock. Of note, it costs stone as well as wood. That's one thing that I'm a little dubious on, but I get the idea. It is super duper tanky, and it has an aura that regenerates naval units when not in combat. And naval units constructed from an Astillero gain range and bonus armor, scaling on age. That is very powerful. Maybe a little too powerful, but the stone cost is pretty substantial. This, again, has some elements I'm not sure are fully implementable, but again, feels rather plausible. Not to mention being very cool. Wow, is this a good way to make your ships way scarier? A way you could do this could be to have the Astillero be an optional building that you can make in addition to the dock, and it can and so that would better justify the stone cost, maybe make it more expensive, and then the units that it trains, kind of like Huskarls from a barracks, could have just slight stat tweaks to represent this mechanic right here. Awesome, awesome idea, though. Now, he has a bunch of grand flavor options, including a little depiction of what an Astillero could look like. He has wonder, he has strategy and tactics. You know I love all of these lovely, lovely details. But most important of all is the core mechanics, and I think that is one place where this build does great. It feels like a true siege civilization in many, many ways. It complements it beautifully with monks, which are a natural pairing. It has infantry and serviceable cavalry to back them up, and it of course has this really interesting naval subtheme. Congratulations, Diego. I love your build, and you totally deserve to be a finalist. I am moving you into the big folder. Joining the Wari. A round of applause to Diego. Thank you so much for the submission, man. It was fantastic. We got one more finalist coming in. But before that, briefly checking in with a chat. Okay. Aragon. Early siege engineers. Spanish plate kind of needs to happen. Completely agree, Megas. NAFTA throwers incoming. Naval and siege knowledge went hand in hand. Yes, absolutely true. I don't think there is a single siege / naval civilization in the game right now, but there should be, like, multiple. Okay. Let's see what else you guys are saying. A lot of stuff. Diego has little rocket ships. They should get the regional genitor. Yeah, that might make sense. I don't know enough about the history, but probably that. Extremely busted overall. I think that's true, besides the fact that I think the early game is very weak. Like, all of their bonuses are Castle Age or later. Or individually upgrade ducks. Yes, we can do individual upgrades now. That is what we do. Thank you, Robert. That's precisely correct. Okay, let us move on to our final finalist. Then I'm gonna touch upon 2 brief honorable mentions, and then we're gonna move to Age of Mythology, but very, very brief. Our final finalist for the AoE2 side of this competition is the Genoese. I will shift my window for you guys. A build by Matroid. Archer, Siege, Naval, Civilization. First of all, look at this pretty document. Ah, it's so beautiful. And look at this history section. Holy hell. This is fantastic. It has this beautiful mapping. It talks all about the Republic of Genoa. It has descriptions on medieval siegecraft. It even taught me a new word. Polyurcetic. Or, is that polyurcetic? I was correct. Art of besieging and conquering fortified cities. How did I not know that word? That's awesome. But moving on. This small digression is like as long as half of one of my videos. But it's great. And do Italians properly represent medieval Italy? The summary that Matroid gives here is that yes, but also no. And I think that the Genoese are a natural start to an Italian split, which he does very faithfully. So going through what he has their lovely flavor. He has campaigns, which are great. Again, read all of this. I highly recommend. I gotta move fast for the purposes of the stream. He has major themes like I do in my vids. And here is his overview. First of all, guilds available in Feudal Age. Ooh, that gets pretty interesting. I don't know if it's super strong, but it's quite interesting. Second, university technologies cost 75% less wood. Quite interesting as well. And he justifies each of them on screen right now, as you can probably see. Next, siege engineers available in Castle Age, discounted from that wood bonus, and it affects the galley line. Wow! As he just mentioned in chat, siegecraft and naval warfare went hand in hand, and I think this is an awesome bonus. I actually considered something very much like this for my. Wait a second, did I add? No, I considered it for my Koreans remake. I don't think I added it. Fishing ships, cheaper. Pretty much exactly what you'd expect, and I think it's a direct port of the Italian bonus. Makes even more sense for Genoa. And lastly, team bonus market technologies are free. So you get guilds for free in Feudal Age. And it benefits the rest of your allies as well. So in practice will be pretty much like strictly worse Saracen bonus, but with some additional implications. 2 unique units, which we'll get into. Unique technologies are Gazaria, which makes castles generate a trickle of every resource, and Pavesate, which is archers and warships plus 2 pierce armor. Pretty familiar. So the Balistaio is his remake of the Genoese crossbowman, which he has changed, I think, almost none. In fact, I don't know the stats perfectly, but they look identical, or at least very close. Makes sense. They are the Genoese crossbowmen after all. 2, the mobile tower. This is a siege tower replacement that shoots arrows, garrisons archers, and has a higher garrison space. Not to mention pretty fat stats in general. It also gets bonuses versus buildings and stone defenses, and benefits from fletching, chemistry, ballistics, arrow slits, and siege engineers. Wow. It is a sick unit. Now, this is specifically referencing, as he puts it, one of the major successes of Genoese siegecraft, the Siege of Jerusalem. With the Genoese engineers, they built 2 40-meters-high towers by using ship's planking before attacking at the southern side of the walls. Sick. So sick. This is what the siege tower should look like. God damn it, thank you, Matroid, for making what I think is a very respectable siege tower here. I wish they all looked like this, but for these purposes, I'm happy with it here. For the unique technologies, he has great justifications for them. Look how beautifully done this is. Discussing their colonies in the Crimean Peninsula and similar. Same with the great Pavese shields. And describing, and also this, not only the Pavis technology that we currently have, Pavese, should not only affect pierce armor. I think that affecting +1/+1 armor doesn't make sense, but having it also affect warships makes a lot of sense too. Because they were placed on galley sides for protection. Makes so much sense. God, I love that. Really well done. And then Look at this lovely tech tree. Fully justified, pretty much universally makes sense, has nice strengths and weaknesses, a good siege workshop necessary for this particular build, and pretty much a perfect university, which makes sense. Monastery is good. Dock is next to perfect. Economy misses a little bit. Missing crop rotation is a problem, but they don't have a great economy bonus besides this, so I would agree that the overall grade of a B- is fair. I might even make it a C+. And then he has a game plan on top of that. And thank you for your attention. Thank you, Matt, for a fantastic build. I think that this build wins the Historical Justification Award for the entire context. Beautifully, beautifully done. I love to see it, and I think it's well made. But the thing I like most about this build is it is a siege, even if it's not listed as a siege civilization, this is a siege civilization in a subtle and indirect way that still makes sense. First of all, university technologies costing less wood, that is an indirect siege bonus when coupled with the siege engineers thing. It then links into the naval civilization side. Then it also has the mobile tower stuff, which is an awesome siege bonus that I really quite like. And on top of that, the way the civilization focuses on archers means that if you are, like, based on how you're balancing your economy and your army comp, you are probably going to naturally gravitate towards siege anyways, especially with fully upgraded siege onagers, mobile towers that you can stick your crossbows and things into and stuff like that. I think that it just links together quite naturally. And I believe that they also have bombard cannons with the same. Yeah, they do. So even though this one is not a listed siege civilization, I would agree with his analysis at the beginning that it is kind of the honorable mention third of this civilization's classifications. And you could even argue it's more of a siege civilization than it is an archer one. But either way, Matroid has fully earned his spot as the third finalist for Age of Empires 2. Congratulations, Matt, and beautifully done. Now, I was going to touch upon 2 quick honorable mentions, but I want to make sure I get through all the finalists before it hits 1 o'clock my time, which is in half an hour, because that's when the polls go live. So I'm going to do those honorable mentions after, briefly check in with Chatterino. Let's say, talking about tercios and things like that. 5 a.m. sleepless night paid off. Nicely done, Matt. Yeah, I think it's really, really well done. Ole says, really nice that more people try to do something with the Siege Tower. Agree. A lot of people were trying to make the Siege Tower good, and I'm grateful for it. Forza de Noa, very good. Matt says, you know how much I struggled making this Civ for a long time. I'm super happy it finally turned out to be very cohesive, especially the history took me so much time. Seriously, man, you paid off. For context, Matt sent me the first drafts of this build months ago. And we've talked about it back and forth, but I did not see how far he'd taken it. I've never seen this presentation before this context. I thought it was beautifully, beautifully put together. And so these are our 3 finalists. We have Aragon, Genoa, and the Wari. Pretty different from each other, and all take the siege prompt in very different directions. But now, let's move on to our Age of Mythology finalists before we dive into honorable mentions. We got only 7 submissions, not surprising, considering Age of Mythology is still kind of a secondary focus on my channel, and also Age of Mythology builds are just much harder, but there was still a lot of competition. So let's dive into it, beginning with our first Age of Mythology finalist, the Romans, submitted by Gaius Julius Megas. I knew for a fact we were going to have a Roman submission when I proposed this, the restriction for no archers, and this one delivered beautifully. First thing I like a lot about it, the favor mechanic. Temples gather passive favor from buildings around it within the original area effect. No other temple can be constructed. That not only feels very applicable to the game, very appropriate for the Romans, but also is original while still being very conventional. Obviously, La Vanilla feels a little different for Age of Mythology, and yet you can tell the difference between a boundary-pushing mechanic and a conventional mechanic. And this one feels conventional in a way that still has a lot of fresh design space. Second of all, I love the hero, the Legatus. This only has a small multiplier versus myth units, but gives an aura to all other human units, also giving an attack bonus versus myth units. And if they're around enough enemies dying, they are transformed into an Imperator. I love this idea. I actually had pretty much this exact idea for Romans myself, and I think it's well implemented and fits the civilization perfectly. In terms of 5 noteworthy units and buildings, the Legionarios has the Pilum charged attack, a great way to give them some ranged without giving them archers. And of course you gotta have this. It makes sense that their core heavy infantry unit would be as strong as it is. The Villa, or I think Villa would be how you pronounce it, but whatever. My pronunciation's all over the place. Which would be a house plus drop point, makes sense. The Castrum, a cheaper fortress with a shorter building time, also makes tons of sense for the Romans. Maybe it would even make sense for them not to have favor costs for their fortresses. So yeah, I think that's a great design decision to give them cheap, quick fortresses. A Vestal Virgin to boost favor income makes sense as well. You sacrifice favor for more favor generation in the future. But here's another of the things that made me love this build. How many of you guys have heard about the Roman Mud Dragon story? I did, but I have completely forgot about it until I read this document. This is a great way of bringing in some distinctly Roman flavoring to a Roman build, besides just recycling Greek or generic like European mythology stuff. I really, really like this. And the idea of it being a strong defensive unit that gains bonus stats near like your own base, but also consumes food, makes so much sense for the grounding. So really nicely done with this myth unit design. It made me desperately want to see more. Now, obviously, we can't go through the full build, but just to briefly touch upon the main gods. For example, of course, you have Jupiter. You need to have Jupiter. Who had, and also bonus points to Megas for naming all the bonuses, which I love. Things like making cavalry refund parts of their cost when killed, and cavalry units get bonus HP when near others. I think these sort of mechanics make a lot of sense and fit Jupiter quite well. And then Rain Wonder, I like that name, but. The thing that I quite like about it is that it's an area control thing, which I really favor in Age of Mythology. I think they're cool and are underused. But what was the other thing that I wanted to do a lot? Of course, you have Juno, you have Minerva. Oh, Sacred Chickens. Hell yeah, Sacred Chickens. We love Sacred Chickens. Yeah, that was the one. Minerva's God Power, technical advantage. For a period of time, all technologies were searched significantly faster. I think this is great. This is another example of a technology that it's Age of Mythology. I don't know how to implement anything, but this feels so implementable and pretty much feels like it should belong in the base game. You could also, if you were me, right, and you were trying to push it further, take this a step further and say that it lets you target a specific technology and research it instantly. But still, makes a lot of sense for Minerva, and overall, I think that the main gods are appropriate, well put together. The minor gods, which I won't get into a ton of detail on, and the myth units all make a ton of sense as well. And then the full build starts here. If you want to look through, I highly, highly recommend it because it has a lot of great stuff to offer, especially on the human unit side and the myth unit side. Now, huge thanks to Megas for the submission. This is beautifully made, and I'm not surprised at all that a Roman build has made it here to a finalist. Well-earned spot as one of the 3. Let's check in with Chatteroonie. First of all, Megas in chat, Ave Roma. Yeah, Roma boo. That's precisely correct. Yeah, I know you wanted to include late antiquity with stuff like the Clibnarii. I think that's a respectable design decision. Maybe not exactly how I would have done it myself, but I still think it can make sense well for the way that you've done this build. Yeah, I know about a dragon that sleeps in a lake in North Italy. Has hired a Swiss engineer to fail to drain the lake. That's funny. All right, now let's dive in to our second finalist for Age of Mythology. It will be The Samoans by Douglas Chung, also known as Seagull, not Pigeon on Discord. I am thrilled to see a Polynesian candidate being submitted here. And it makes a lot of sense, given that, as I mentioned in my own Polynesians build way the hell back in the day, they did not use bows in warfare. Or if they did, it was unbelievably rare. So, first of all, let's talk about some of the generic bonuses, as Douglas describes it. Things like all ships are canoes, which are cheaper but weaker. They don't have transport ships, but all their canoes can transport units. Reveal shorelines at the start of the game. Thank you. And boats can be built by their scout, villager, and fishing ship unit by shores in addition to docks. Great. They also drop all resources off at a Shrine of AoE2, which generates their favor. So, let's talk about their favor mechanics. The Shrine of AoE2 houses all eco-technologies, generates favor based on the number of resources within its line of sight. The more resources, like resource nodes, there are, and the more diverse they are, the more it generates. And diversity is more impactful than sheer number. Two cannot be built next to each other, much like the temple thing on that last Roman build, and they can each hold one relic, which makes nearby resources last longer. Yes, I love this. It fits in perfectly with the Polynesian concept of mana and the idea of preserving their environments and conserving their resources, which was so important to them. I think this is done beautifully, and I absolutely love it. It's very similar how I would probably have done so myself, especially if I could find a more specifically Samoan iteration of it. And speaking of which, the fact that this is a Samoan build and not a Polynesian build makes me very happy as well. Okay, the fact that these resources will run out also forces you to resettle the shrines, kind of representing how Polynesians had to keep exploring to acquire more resources. Couldn't have said it better myself. I think that this favor mechanic right here is my single favorite mechanic for sure of the contest. Maybe approaching my favorite mechanic of the entire contest. But the build has other things to recommend itself to, such as their generic villager unit. They have their trader unit, which can actually board a canoe to pass water. I think that's awesome. They start with an explorer, kind of like an AO3 explorer. It's ransomed at town centers if it dies, which I think is pretty tight. Builds canoes and can transform into a tatai, a navigator, scouting catamaran, so that you can zoom out over the water as well. Really nicely done, makes a lot of sense. Then there are two types of heroes. The Matai, which is like a villager hero, so to speak. Obviously can be good against myth units, but buffs nearby villagers. And then the Ali'i, which is like a military high chief. And then also a special hero based on a specific god. I'm going to briefly skim through these because it's a little too much for me to review at once. But again, as always, highly recommend you guys check out all of these. I want to talk about the gods that he picked, specifically the way that he chose to implement Tagaloa, the supreme Samoan god. So here's the bonuses. Reveals starting resources near your base. Great combos with the Shrine of AoE2. Can upgrade their heroes to a Tui, which buffs stats and abilities. And newly constructed town centers spawn 2 Tagata, which are their villagers. Now, here's what I like so much about that. Oh, and I forgot. The god power. Manu Atele. Select an area of the map to transform slowly, first covered vine, then creating 2 worms, and then spawns a group of hunt, forest, mine, and 2 villagers. And you can't build on the transformed land. This is not only a sick god power with great aesthetics, it fits perfectly into his myths, perfectly, and synergizes great with the rest of your build. Makes a bunch of resources, gives you some villagers, and people can't build on the virgin land so that you can gather favor from it more easily. I think that's awesome. And get this, in the legends, he creates the islands by throwing rocks from the sky to the sea, which grow vines, emerge worms, and the worms become humans. And he gives every island distinct characteristics and 2 human ancestors. Hence, reveal starting resources and 2 Tagato and new TC. Beautifully done. I love that. I think this is my single favorite major god implementation of the entire contest. And so, I guess you could say my choice of the Samoans here is carried by how much I love Tagaloa and their favor generation mechanic. The rest of the build is respectable too, don't get me wrong. These 2 bits are my favorite parts of it. And then other gods as well. Saveasiuleo. I don't know if I got that right, but Saveasiuleo sounds kind of right. And the other major god, Ti'iti'i. Their version of Maui, effectively. I'm not going to go through all this now, because again, we have finite time, but and the rest of the build was pretty thorough up until this point. But again, highly recommend you dive in. I think that this build has great internal synergy with its resources and favor mechanics. I love the water crossing stuff. It's just a shame water sucks so much ass in age games in general. And then he also, of course, has these minor god options and myth unit ideas that highly I recommend you look into. A brief note here. he does mention, why do I think Samoans are best fit for the no human range gimmick? Specifically because they uniquely favored melee combat, and range weapons were underused compared to melee weapons like clubs, though he does have a kind of throwing club, which does fit the criteria for the contest. I think that this is a really well done build and totally deserves to join Megas's fantastic Romans build as a second Age of Mythology finalist. Samoans, Romans. Kind of couldn't be more different, and yet they both fit the gimmick. Beautifully done, Douglas. All right, checking in with Chatterino before we dive on to our final finalist. Then we'll cover honorable mentions. Let's take a look at what you guys have to say. All right. Oh, in chat right now. It's my honor. Nicely done, my friend. This is so beautifully made. It is really well done. Really, really well done. David says, shame I can't join, but good luck to the contenders. Bummer we couldn't have you this time. Hopefully next time. Explorer design was greatly inspired by the Maori Civ and Wars of Liberty mod. Great. I mean, Chumbeke, who's the creator of one of the creators of Wars of Liberty, was another finalist in the contest, so how fitting and appropriate. Tagaloa Godpower was proud as a dime. I have 2 builds. I'm very happy you like it too. I think it's fantastic. I genuinely think you nailed it with that. So overall, beautifully done. And now it is time for our final Age of Mythology finalist. You ready to go? It is the Quiche by Guire. Now, the Quiche are relevant to my channel, given that I mentioned them recently in the How Much Can We Add to Mesoamerica video. And they are one of the major Maya peoples. They are a highland Maya people, pretty much intertwined with the Kaqchikel, who you could maybe integrate into this build as well, in the highlands of what is now Guatemala. Now, as mentioned by Guire, a Maya generic culture might be more accurate, or not accurate, but more likely. But this is way more accurate, and I think it's really, really well done to be specifically Quiche, because we have actually a pretty good body of understanding for how Quiche and Kaqchikel myths operate. So first of all, favor mechanic. They don't conduct sacrifices. Instead, they have randomly spawned nearby them on the map these cenotes, which are big reservoirs of naturally formed water that are these great overgrown holes into beautiful pristine lakes. And people would often sacrifice to them. So how is this represented in this build? So there's a set randomly generated number of cenotes, and only the Mayan player can see where they are. And you can build a temple on the cenote, which will generate favor, and you can speed up the process by offering food, wood, or gold, the latter being most powerful. Awesome. Super cool. Forces you to push out onto the map. It's flavorful and appropriate, and it helps them be distinct from other Mesoamerican, more blood-based sacrifice mechanics, even though I'm sure the Quiche did that as well. For hero, he has the Chulel, which is their version of the Nahual, which you may have heard of being a Mesoamerican, like an Aztec and adjacent Nahuatl people thing. This is kind of their version of it. So it's like a shape-shifting sorcerer who can transform into animals. They can be kind of varying alignments, either good or evil, give curses, similar. And he has a list of different animals that they can change into for different amounts of favor, which is pretty awesome. You can only be an owl at the beginning. You can fly but can't attack. And then you can turn into bats. And then you can you can do snakes and jaguars, which I think is sick. So this is, again, similar to an idea that I had, and you guys may be seeing at some point in the not too distant future, but I think it's well done, and he's chosen some nice Maya-specific animals like bats and owls. Next, noteworthy buildings. The Maize Field, more expensive to produce, but far more food per minute, but they run out, unlike other Age of Mythology farms, and you can't build over them. So they're a supercharged food source that you have to constantly move around. And it associated with the death and rebirth in Maya culture. Beautiful. That's so cool. And the ball game court, which is exclusive to a specific major god, that lets you train units inside to make them permanently faster and stronger. Awesome. I really want to see the ball game represented in some way in both Age of Mythology and Age of Empires. For units, they have effectively a trash spearman that only costs food and only costs half a population space, but dies very hard. But here's the thing that I liked most. Blowguns. Get this. They don't do damage, but poison the enemy. Awesome design. And the thing that I like so much about this is not only does this kind of fit the no archer thing pretty nicely, right? It's not an archer, right? It's different. But the Quiche specifically were really known for their use of the blowgun. And look at this image. It features heavily in their mythology and religion as well. Awesome stuff. Great, great choice to have a blowgun be one of their primary range candidates. For major gods, have some fantastic options. Their version of the Feathered Serpent. Kukumats. That was rough. And focusing mostly on things like favor and stuff like that. I want to focus, though, on the hero twins, Hunahpu and Shbalanke. I think that's right. Get this for bonuses. These are like the hero twins, the most important figures of the famous Popol Vuh, and which follows their adventures and exploits. It's a really, really cool story that I highly recommend. But get this, I absolutely love this mechanic. First of all, their blowguns spread poison in an Age of Empires, in an area of effect, and range units have larger range. So they're fulfilling the no archers requirement while being a ranged focus hero. Hell yeah, or ranged focus major god. That's fantastic. But also, they have a unique technology that lets their bulkers periodically generate units, and they have a god power that resurrects the last slain unit wherever you click on the map. I think that's fantastic. But even more cool than that is Vukab Kakish, who is their kind of like villain god, right? Like a major antagonist in the Popol Vuh, right? This god has a mechanic I love, which I think is really well done. The god power. Intoxication makes a group of enemy units unable to be controlled for a short amount of time. If applied to working villagers, they will just work slower. Which in reference to what was it? His son Zipakna, who slaughtered 400 minor deities as they became drunk. The idea of a god power that stops you from controlling enemy units temporarily is something I love and have experimented with in my Sumerians build. I think that this is not only well done and feels very doable, but it also feels appropriate for a major god that you can have this from the beginning of the game. It has great implications in early micro situations and still is useful late game without being overpowered, I would say. Really, really nicely done. And then look at all these awesome things. He has full list of minor gods, awesome myth unit. Look at this goddamn thing. That's a myth unit if I've ever seen one. Fantastically done. You may skip this in the stream, extra units, buildings, myths. This is a beautifully done build. I think that it does a great job of actually faithfully representing specifically Quiche, culture, and religion, and bonus points for making it more than just the Maya. Like I said, I think that my favorite thing on this build is the use of the blowgun and having it have no damage but only poison. I think that's so clever and fulfills the criteria for the contest very nicely, while also being a beautifully specific version of a very underrated world religion. And that makes it a perfect candidate to be our final Age of Mythology contender. So, where does this leave us? For Age of Mythology, we have the Quiche, the Samoans, and the Romans. And then for Age of Empires, we have Aragon, the Genoese, and the Wari. We're going to get to honorable mentions in a moment because there's a lot of good honorable mentions, but let's briefly check in with the comments. And nice, Guire is in chat. And Amiki says, let's go, the Quiche made it. That is awesome. Cenote is not really present in Maya Highlands. And Tohil not being a major god. Yeah, Tohil is actually mentioned later in the document as a possible fourth major god. I fully agree, Robert. The Mesoamerica has such beautiful myths. Can you test the sound on my build? I'm going to get to that in a moment, Prox. Unfortunately, it does not work because you have the sharing criteria block sounds for certain people. It gave me a pop-up. Maybe I'll be able to see it. Matt says, never played Age of Mythology, but it looks so cool. Couldn't agree more. I completely agree. Al says, busy with stuff, so couldn't participate. Hopefully I get you in the next one. And Guire says, happy first Theorycraft, became a finalist. Well deserved. It was beautifully done. And let's see. And then Elimali, I believe, says, I have a hope that when the Chinese pantheon arrive, they will have a fourth major god. Well, there's a lot the Chinese pantheon needs. Let's briefly go through honorable mentions, because there was great stuff about every one of these builds. We're going to do 2 first and then go in basic order. Beginning with the 2 civilization builds that came closer to finalist than any others, but didn't quite make it. These were both really well done, and it was a very tough call to not have them be finalists. Beginning with this Javanese build, who was done by Amiki. First of all, hard to see on my screen, but look, if you pull up the speaker presentation notes, this build has beautiful justifications. Look at all this. Look at all this great justification of the speaker notes while keeping the presentation slides themselves nice and easy to read. I love that. Great stuff there. But this Javanese build was siege and naval. It gave a regional unit the giant Zhong ships. It had like a redo of the current Malay, recycling a couple of their bonuses as fitting, but also focusing nicely on, above all else, artillery, which the Javanese were known for. It is a crime that the current Malay do not have a reference to this. Frankly, they really just need to be split up. Look at this. These beautiful long-barreled arquebuses. I think it's awesome. The tech tree makes sense. The game plan makes sense. The literal only reason that this one didn't quite make it in is it didn't feel like as much of a siege civilization as some of the others, and more like a gunpowder civilization. But that doesn't mean it's not an awesome build. It's fantastically done, and I was very tempted to have it be a finalist. So, beautifully done, Amiki. The second of the very near finalists was this beautifully made Ming presentation by Douglas Chung, again, seagull, not pigeon. First of all, aesthetics on point. Second of all, the build itself is great, using the Achaemenid Persian individually upgraded town center mechanic. And once again, it is only slightly edged out of contention by being a little more focused on gunpowder than siege. There was one other thing that I was kind of dubious about, which was them missing trebuchets, specifically because the replacement unit has less range. And I felt like that might just be too punishing. But I get the idea, and I think that the unique unit options of the awesome Sanyan Chong, like the multi-barrel hand cannon and the crouching tiger mortar, make tons of sense. Plus, even a reference to the treasure chips. I don't know the inflections, but Bao Chuan. And this is actually, I believe, modeled after the Zhong ships that the Chinese imported from Indonesia. Maybe. 666 stuff, though. And I think the build itself is really well done. Again, that trebuchet thing was kind of weird to me, but more than anything else, this just missed being finalist because it just didn't feel like as much of a siege civilization as it did like a gunpowder civilization. Still a really well designed, really well made presentation. Congratulations, Douglas, for doing such a good job with it. Now, to talk about some of the other honorable mentions, because there are a lot of them, so I'm going to go through them fast. We have this fantastic Andalusians build by Professor Paprika. This was a defensive and siege civilization. I thought that this one was really interesting because it represented Andalusian culture in a way that I hadn't seen done before, because I've seen a lot of Andalusian builds. I think my favorite part of this build, what was it that I really liked about this one? The bit about using large crossbows against as a defensive tool was pretty cool, and I think that the team bonus fits it appropriately. But I think the thing that I liked most about this build was all university techs available in Castle Age. It's a sick mechanic. Really interesting. It does the whole siege engineers available in Age early, but like a little less derivative, I guess? Derivative is not the right word. It's a little more textured than that, and it's a very powerful bonus that very much defines a lot of this civilization. I think it's really cool, and this was definitely in consideration. Nicely done, Professor. This Avars build over here. Apologies, I can't remember who's... Oh, Duke Rando. Thank you. This was a rare example of a siege cavalry combination. The thing that I liked most about this was, first of all, the idea of having the Avars be a siege civ because they potentially introduced the traction trebuchet to Europe. That is a cool idea and does make some sense. And also the idea of a unique unit that is a heavy cavalry that can repair siege. It's pretty creative. The thing I like most about the build, though, more than anything else, is this bonus. Cavalry give back 10 food cost when killed, based on the idea of steppe warriors having a group of horses following behind them to provide nourishment and give the impression of a huge army. That is a great mechanic for that justification. I like it a lot. Nicely done, Duke. I thought this was really well put together. I guess I'll save the more unusual honorable mentions for last. Another one, the Galicians. This one was done by Prox Warrior and is a rare example of something that has sound. Unfortunately, I don't have permission to play the audio file because Google Docs can be very fussy like that, unfortunately. But the idea that he actually put sound files in a presentation, that's pretty awesome. I liked that a lot. And also just a fun, tongue-in-cheek, homage-ish sort of presentation style that I think is very fun. But look at these graphics. That looks like a handmade graphic to me. So does that. I think that is seriously, seriously commendable. Nicely done. I would also little notes like, you can't see it on screen right now. Let me change it. The unique unit having the same attack sound as the lightest. Who talks about attack sounds? That's sick. And so that sort of attention to detail, I think, is pretty fantastic. Really nicely done, Prox. I enjoyed this a lot. I wish I could have heard the sound files. Okay, next up is going to be the Knights of St. John. This is done by Megas once again. I think this is a very cool build that all comes down to one bonus. All non-siege units cost 2 population space, but have better stats. Wow. That's sick. I mean, it's not super la vanilla, but it's sick. And I love it. I think that this, if we could find a way to make this bonus like be implementable properly, I think it is technically implementable, but it would be fussy to implement. Even so, I think it's awesome. Really well done. Fits the civilization super well and is by far and away my favorite part about it. Beautiful. Others, the Muscovites. This is done by the pillar of the community, Anzu. And this is a more realistic rework of the Slavs that takes a lot of, kind of like Amiki's Javanese rework of the Malay. And shifts them somewhat to make them feel a little more appropriate. Things like the fur trade bonus, which makes their hunters deposit gold when hunting food and lets scouts and cavalry archers gather from animals. Obviously, it's a callback to AoE4, but it does make a good amount of sense. And also having the detonates effect be just like a baseline bonus. This is a classic Anzu build. It's reserved. It's perfectly la vanilla, and it is beautifully justified. The thing that makes an Anzu build special, let me scroll down to this. Look at this, guys. Look at the amount of not only beautiful detail on campaigns and everything, but then look at this strategy section. This is all tactical analysis, and it's classic Anzu. It's really cool. It's really thorough, and I loved it. This was another one that I was actually quite tempted to put as a finalist, but the other ones edged it out for one reason or another. Even so, really well done, Anzu. I always love your work, man. And now moving on to some of the more unusual honorable mentions. We have, for example, a Chichimex build made by Nerifer. This was not actually a siege build. As such, I cannot consider it as a finalist, but it is a very good and realistic, to what degree I could understand, iteration of a very obscure civilization, the Chichimex. I would highly recommend scanning through this build because it's exceptionally unconventional, but very, very cool. If I had to pick my favorite, wow, there's just so much about this thing. I gotta say the archer that can become invisible. I do like that a lot. Completely avant-garde, but still super cool. Another one. Good old Ivan is back once again with one of his classic DLC proposals. This one is a Viking rework that not only proposes things like new resources and stuff like that, but is also beautifully organized into document tabs, showing different versions of civilizations across time and with tons of historical detail, analysis of potential campaigns, AI player names. Holy heck. You could spend days reading this man's work and still have more to do because that's how thorough he is. So Ivan, beautifully done, man. I think my favorite thing about this build is specifically how you split the civilizations by time. I love when that happens. And I really appreciate that being done in game. Another of the more unusual entries was this one. This was not meant to be a true submission to the contest because it's not a siege civilization. Instead, it is a proposal for a Chronicles-style retelling of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Oh, pretty sick. So instead, it gives you dynasties rather than civilizations, with major leaders and that all have team bonuses and unique units and things, as you might imagine. And though I have not really deeply investigated the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it seems not only very authentic, but also I think that some of the choices made are very clever. And above all else, the reason I wanted to shout this one out is that I think the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is probably the most compelling Chronicles-style DLC to me that I can think of off the top of my head. One, because it kind of bridges the gap between the ancient era and the medieval era, so that we can start pulling the Chronicles stuff away from the ancients and back to medieval, like the medieval topic that Age of Empires 2 is founded around, which I think the game really needs. Like, we can get to the ancient stuff eventually, but we shouldn't start there. So let's get back there. The Three Kingdoms are a nice stepping stone along the way. Chinese history is insane, man. It's so unbelievably underrated. It needs to be explored more. And what's best, the Three Kingdoms fits perfectly with the Chronicles style of a big overarching campaign that focuses on three civilizations. It's awesome. What's not to like? Definitely recommend looking through this build. Tremendous shout outs to, I believe his name is Lei, who sent me in this build. And let me see, is this the last one? Before I say last, is this the last? Yeah. The last honorable mention that I want to shout out is this one. A set of 4 civilizations based on the TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's not Siege, it's not a real civilization, and yet, I think they're sick. If you like Avatar: The Last Airbender, holy shit, this is actually a pretty decent implementation. Like, getting the water tribes and having polar bear dog riders or tundra camel warriors, that's sick. I think it's really well implemented. The buildings make... Excuse me, hiccup. The buildings make sense. I guess the Earth Kingdom's kind of siege-based, lol. The implementations all make sense. The unique units are thorough and exciting. And I love when we try to apply Age of Empires 2 to fantasy or fictional civilizations. It's something I want to explore more on the channel at some point. I just want to, like, I don't want to move away from history stuff. So you could see me dabbling with games like Age of Wonders and things like that as kind of a way to like shift towards more fantasy fiction oriented directions without losing the history that the channel is predicated on. So definitely take a look at this build, especially if you like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I want to talk to you also about Age of Mythology honorable mentions, but before then, remember, it's now 1:07 p.m. my time, and as such, voting is now open for the contest. Go to the community tab on my channel and cast your votes. Let me throw that up for you guys. I'll put it in chat. And then I'll check into chat. Cast your votes! Alright, let's take a look over here. For chat catch-ups. Thought about a Malay split yesterday. Looking forward to see more builds with them. Couldn't agree more. Chetbong, let's go. Yeah. Proc says, hopefully you read my bonuses. I certainly did. I thought it was very well done. I don't know. Crouching Tigers are really bad in Civ 6. We can buff them. Now I think about it, says Douglas, Ming is more like gunpowder and defensive. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think within the gunpowder and defensive criteria, it's very well and appropriately implemented. Missing Trebuchet was really one of the things I wanted to do the most. I think that it's doable to miss Trebuchet. I just think that the replacement unit needed more range. That's like the big thing that I was nervous about with that. Put a YouTube link instead of a sound file for that reason. Love that he made every single potential voice line. Yeah, that's the sort of things that Prox Warrior does so beautiful, is like the enormous attention to detail with voice lines and graphics. Really impressive stuff. Let's see. Code a unique version of every unit. Yeah, pretty much exactly that, Duke. And then Megas says, for the people wondering, the Knights of St. John were an attempt to emulate the playstyle of AoE3 Maltese. I kind of guessed that was the case, even though I don't know AoE3 well. Can you pronounce the Galicians' unique unit? Let me try. Listen, my pronunciation isn't great, but I'm at least enthusiastic about it. It is Irmandiños. Is that correct? Irmandiños? You tell me if I'm right. Let's see. Sweet, man. That is amazing. I don't think China will allow splitting of Chinese civilization. I actually think you might be surprised. From what I've seen, there is a lot of other games that have given a more thorough depiction of Chinese medieval history. Irmandiños. I want this so badly. Give Chinese a campaign spotlight. Yes, yes, we need it. Don't seem to have a lot of issues with Three Kingdoms. Exactly. Douglas says, I live in Taiwan and my university roommate is currently studying for a final exam in a class talking about Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Yep. Amiki says, have to go. We'll watch stream later. Thank you so much for your submission, man. You're fantastic. Post the sound for you on the Discord. I'll check it a little bit later. Galicians, missed them. Awesome. And from there, awesome. I think it's a pretty well done build. And Zaster says, when you have time, could you let me know about what you think of the campaign I proposed for the Muscovites? Let's do that. Let's take a quick look at it before we do Age of Mythology Honorable Mentions. Let's scroll down through your beautiful document to the campaign. Ivan the Terrible, naturally. Okay. I don't know if I want to go through all this because I don't want to take too much time of just reading quietly. Oh, wait. Has more than 6 scenarios. That's quite interesting. Is that true? If this expansion were to have a Chronicle-style grand campaign, oh yeah. I actually think that would be really, really cool. To have like a Rurik to Ivan Chronicles thing. I think that's a sick idea. If there are specific things you want to hear my thoughts on for this, Zaster, please let me know. Because I got to move swiftly on pretty shortly. Okay, let's jump over to Age of Mythology. Because we have 4 other builds that were all fantastic. Beginning with the one that almost made it. Namely the Etruscans, which were submitted by, I believe, Slifer. Like I said, I thought the Romans would get mentioned, and the Etruscans are close. And so not only does this have a Roman-esque feel, but it does have some nice distinctions to it. They even have a similar like unique drop site for resources, kind of like the villa. That even directly references the villa in its description, and also provides population. So a lot of like interesting parallels between this and the Romans build that Megas submitted. But the thing that I think is most interesting about this Etruscans build is how they generate favor. They practice divination. And they have 3 different priests that they can make that each generate favor differently. So this one, the Aruspice, I don't know, is an archaic age favor generator that can kill livestock and convert the food into favor. Great. Haruspice is the divination based on animal entrails. Really appropriate. Then Augur, which determined the future based on the flight of birds. And in this case, it lets you heal humans, and based on how much you heal them, you generate favor. That one doesn't feel like quite as appropriate, but then the last one is awesome. The Fulgatores. This is a priest that does divination based on lightning and atmospheric phenomena. And get this, while it's standing idle, there is a chance every like 30 seconds that a lightning bolt will randomly hit the area within his line of sight and generate favor, and the lightning bolt can incidentally fry enemy units. That's so cool. I love that idea. This by itself made me consider having this as a finalist. Really well done. And then a perfectly respectable like array of units. The major gods are all appropriate, and I love how again they feel quite specifically Etruscan, with things like the Thersu myth unit, which I believe is Etruscan specific, as well as a couple more generic ones like griffins and fawns to round out the gaps. Even so, Etruscans are not easy to research, and this is a very commendable take on them, again with that lightning priest being the thing I like the most. Other honorable mentions. A Slavic pantheon concept by nobody important. This was another one that I strongly considered as a finalist. The thing that I like most about this one is, get this, they have a bathhouse unit. I actually didn't realize how important bathhouses were in Slavic folklore, but this bathhouse lets you train house spirits. They can't research, the Slavs can't research economic technologies. Instead, use garrison house spirits within town centers and drop sites to give multipliers. That is a freaking fantastic mechanic. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I think that is one of my favorite mechanics that you guys sent me on an Age of Mythology build. And it really made me strongly consider this as a finalist. The other mechanics on it did feel appropriate. For example, the idea of a baseline counter cavalry spear unit that can also equip some throwing spears and having their gourds and stuff like that. But the rest of the build didn't quite capture me as much as this awesome house spirit mechanic. And so I think that this is a firm honorable mention, with this house spirit thing being one of my favorite things you guys have sent me. This is sick. Another honorable mention, the Abandoned. So get this. This is a more fictional Atlantean style civilization. This is the idea of a Hellenic people who lost the favor of the Olympian gods and now are fighting the religions of the world with facts and logic. And so what they do is they generate favor by constructing education centers near their town centers. And they, instead of having major gods, they have philosophies like cynicism and Epicureanism and Stoicism, and philosophers like Aristotle and Euclid and Daedalus rather than gods. This is one of the quirkiest builds that you guys sent to me for this one. I'll be honest, I didn't expect to see Greeks destroying people with facts and logic, but it was fun. It's a very unusual and creative idea. And even though I don't really know if I don't think it quite qualifies for the build's parameters, I think it was distinctly well put together. And if nothing else, certainly made me think, what if we broadened Age of Mythology to things like philosophies? How would that change the landscape of the game and the way that we design cultures for it? Really, really cool to think about. And it has some steampunky aesthetics in it too that I thought were kind of fun. Nicely done, my friend. This was a really interesting build. And lastly, a build by Patch, Urile, which is a Cthulhu mythos culture. Wow, someone had to do it at some point. An Atlantean-style civilization that would have worship sites generated as part of map terrain. Now, as you might imagine, a Cthulhu mythos civilization is not quite fit with the criteria, though you could argue it's kind of a timeless cosmic force. So kind of it could qualify as being prior to 1000 AD, but I chose to interpret it based on when the mythos became popularized and the novels were kind of put out, which means that it didn't quite fit for me. However, it is still a very cool idea. For example, look at this. A siege unit that shoots chain lightning. What the heck? That's awesome. And it even has justifications for it. Can you believe it? And it even has the standard issue of heroes and major gods, which admittedly I am not a big Cthulhu mythos guy, but seems pretty appropriate. I did dive around in the wiki a little bit before going into it. And so even though the nuances of this were somewhat lost on me because I do not know the Cthulhu mythos super well as a literary body, I think that it was reasonably well, I mean, not even reasonably, clearly very well implemented and clearly very faithful to the source material. There is one thing I want to focus on, though. This god power. Creates illusionary copies of target non-hero unit. Illusions deal no damage and take increased damage. Their count depends on unit type and scales with age. That is a fantastic god power. I love this idea. I think you could even have it apply to heroes because they deal no damage and take increased damage. I think that especially if this was a very generous god power that was really cheap and easy to reuse, this sounds like an insane amount of fun. Kind of both for the reason that you can multiply your army and make it look way scarier than it is, but also for things like scouting purposes and bamboozling enemies. It just feels like a high micro potential god power. And I think that this was this might be my favorite god power anyone sent me this time, just because of how clean and simple and straightforward it was. So beautifully done. I think that even though it's an unconventional build, I think that for anyone who enjoys the Cthulhu mythos, they're going to find a lot to like here. And Patch, give yourself a pat on the back. This was really well done, and is one of the only builds that really made me scratch my head, because, God, there was a lot here that I had to stumble through with a wiki to kind of understand, but it's really faithfully implemented. All right, friendos, them's the builds. Make sure you go through and you check out all the builds in full. I highly recommend looking at the honorable mentions as well as the top finalists, because there was so many really well done stuff, like really well made pieces there that I think, frankly, not only deserve more attention, but and I wish I could give them more attention, but also showcase just how much ground there is still to cover with both Age of Empires 2 and Age of Mythology. Once in a while, I'll get a comment that says, there's no real point in theory crafting for those games because everything that can be done has been done. That's not true. We know that's not true. And builds like these showcase that in its totality. So thank you so much to everyone who submitted. I really, really appreciate it, and you've done beautifully. From now, it is time to move to the chat. I will scan through, try to catch up, and then if you guys have any questions for me about any topic, this contest, theory crafting topics, games, fiction, fantasy, mythology, history, whatever, let me know. Let's catch up with the commentos. Okay. Yeah, we got 2 Italian builds, the Etruscans and the Romans. And yeah, Matt did a huge props to Disaster for the effort made with the campaign. Ivan says, take note on my TC and Castle unique choices. I thought that was very nicely done. Megas says, Romans and Etruscans should feel related but different. I'd say that the build accomplishes that pretty well. We always say that Greek was the Romans copied the Greeks, but no, they had original things. Of course they did. Yeah, the Romans and the Etruscans, while they borrowed a lot from the Greeks, they iterated on it very, very substantially as well. And I think that not only deserves to have them be independently represented, but it means that when we do get a Roman or Etruscan build, I do not want to see it as a reskin of the Greeks. That would make me very cross. The Etruscans weren't Indo-European. Really? That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Love the Etruscans build. Very unique. Completely agree. Really fascinated with the house spirit mechanic when I read it. Completely agree, Douglas. I love that house spirit thing. Nicely done. The atheist civilization. Planescape Torment. Yeah, kind of true. Confucius Civ OP. A separate group of Atlanteans after betrayal by Poseidon became the abandoned Age of Mythology civilization. Yeah. Cthulhu, let's go. Eric says, first heard of Cthulhu's mythos from Magica. Oh, God. I was talking about Magica the other day. What a game that was. Blade Master's Mirror Split. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of, Eric. Anyone who knows Warcraft 3, when I saw that illusion thing, I was just thinking of the Blade Master hero unit. It was precisely what I was going for. Cool but quirky idea to combine Cthulhu mythology with steampunk and gothic horror elements as basically a bloodborne civilization. Yeah, I definitely think other people would come to a similar conclusion. They definitely feel related to some degree. Great job, Patch. It's fun. Completely agree. Awesome Cthulhu thing. Humbled by being chosen as a finalist. Of course, Diego, we are humbled to have you. Disaster says, didn't want to waste time in the stream with you reading the whole campaign. Meant about the last scenario playing out after Yvonne's death. Let me go double check that then. Scrolling down to the campaign arena. Okay. Dies at the end. Okay. Then we have possible scenarios at the end of the can venture into alternate history. Aha, yes. The final scenario take place at the death of the protagonist, with a secondary character working to maintain their thing. Yep. Bonus scenario featuring Fyodor Ivanovich in the time of troubles might be appropriate. I agree. Bookend to the campaign, return to Moscow, perhaps the same map we had in scenario 1 or 3. I like that idea. Now all built built up, representing how accomplished we have become. I think that more campaigns should do stuff like that, by the way. We're not playing as Feodor. We are playing as a number of different boyars, similar to Nobunaga, starting at loyal vassals, but vying to take the throne. Oh, that's sick! Feature Muscovites and Novgorodians, representing Polish and Swedish interventions. That's so cool. So you could effectively like choose your boyar, and then try to like take the throne with aid from outside or against other boyars and things like that. Wow, what a great idea! And I think that if we are going to go into alt history and Age of Empires, at least for now, while there's still so much real history to be explored, this is the way to do it. As an extra scenario at the end of a campaign that can show off some light alt history of how things could have worked out differently. Yeah, like I just said, there's so much real history still to explore in the game. I personally do not want to see a lot of alt history gone through unless we see it in a way kind of like this. I think that's really, really cool. If you have other thoughts on the topic, I definitely would like to hear it. Okay. Awesome work, everyone. Enjoyed the submissions. I completely agree. Check out fictional contest. Nice. My reasoning for this is that how the Romanovs came into power. Yeah, I think that's true. So it's alt history, but still showcasing real history while letting it play out in different ways slightly. I think that's great. Fernando says, did the Chichimeca concept, didn't know the intention was to submit siege civilizations. No problem, but it was actually a really cool design. And hence why I think it's a very, very fitting honorable mention. Big commendation for actually managing to pull something off on such a hard-to-research civilization. The YouTuber Stauyi makes alt history Hearts of Iron, Stakuyi, Hearts of Iron runs. Explains all the housing movements. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Chumbeke, am back from buying groceries and shocked to be a finalist. Okay, thanks. It was awesome, man. You did a really good job. Notice we only had 3 balance changes over the course of the year, and all of them were fairly small. In total, per civ, we've had 15 buffs, 5 nerfs, and 3 buffs/nerfs. Yeah, it's been kind of a light year for the game, and obviously we haven't had really new civilizations this year. Not conventional ones, at least. Unless I'm forgetting. Unless there's someone at the beginning of the year I'm forgetting about. When did Mountain Royals come out? Was it this year or was it last year? I can't remember. I think it was last year. They're blurring together, friends. 25 civs unchanged. Wild. Okay. Do you guys have other questions for me about the contest, about theory crafting, about anything else besides? Guire says, if next AoM contest doesn't have a time limit, I promise I'll submit a Yankee civilization. Nice. That's awesome. Robert says, what region or era in history are you most into? Jeez. Right now or just overall? If I had to say one overall... That's miserably hard. Probably West Africa. I've become extremely fond of West African history, probably because it's one of like the only parts of the world that I feel like I actually know more about than the average history lover. But and I've just gotten very fond of it. I feel like after I did my Tales of Gold DLC proposal, I kind of like unlocked the region for myself, so I feel like I understand it way better now, having done a couple more hours of research. I mean, more than a couple. And then if I had to do a second place, it would be British Isles, particularly Scotland, and the surrounding isles. I'm very, very into, especially mythologically. Okay, with fearsome critters about the Yankee Civ. I've thought of the exact same idea. Next Age of Mythology Civ contest should be post 1000 only. I actually kind of like that idea. That's sick. Age of Mythology 2. Oh, good. New types of factions and mechanics. Well, actually, I had an idea for a contest. Tell me if you guys like this idea. So I think it was Temudin in the Discord that proposed this. What do you think of a contest where you have to pitch a new RTS or turn-based strategy game? So it has to be like a short enough pitch that you're not like showing the full game, but showing like the selling features and the time frame and the aesthetic and that sort of thing. That sounds pretty fun. See if we can get some like innovation in the strategy game arena more broadly. Given that my last video, the one about Age of Wonders, was kind of talking about strategy games more broadly, it felt appropriate. I'd like to do other contests too, of course, but I think the strategy game one sounds really, really fun. Maybe for down the line. Mountain Royals came out in October. Yeah, it was last year, so it's been a while since we've had new civilizations. Next contest should also have an AoE3 component. I guess we can do that. I'm spooked, though. I'd have to have a consultant on board, like Chumbeke or something, to help me grade them. Maybe we could even do one for Civilization, like Civ 6. We get Yume Crab on. That could be fun. Would be cool if a future AoE2 contest being only about reworks. That could be pretty sick. Yeah, I thought about doing something like that. That's going to be... Mega says that's going to be a bit much. Yeah, the RTS pitch or a strategy game pitch, it might be a bit much. I might try to find a way to tone it down a little bit if we're going to do it. Chumbeke says, Paul Bunyan, OP, please nerf. That's awesome. Remind me of the game ideas on the old Heaven Games forum. Exactly. I used to be on the Heaven forums for Age of Wonders and Age of Empires 2 all the damn time. Finnish Pantheon should be added to Retold. Honda, I think I've seen you in the comments a bunch. There's a couple people who have been saying, Finns! We want Finns! Yeah, I want Finns too. I have a lot of other things to do, but I do want Finns. They are definitely on my list. Chumbeke says I can help you with AoE 3 and Civ as well. Thanks, man. That would be awesome. Oh, did I miss your comment, Prox? Let me go check. The one about the Newlandese civilization for fictional contest? Yeah, I'll definitely consider it. And then always down to help with AoE 3. Thank you, Megas. Very kind of you. You guys have any other questions for me or thoughts for me? Fins for AoE 2 are a necessity. That's what I'm definitely strongly considering. I think that in Age of Mythology, for me, it's even more of a strength. All your alt accounts, oh god. It's like that one guy who posted, it's I'm your only follower, and now I'm going to comment on all my other accounts. Want to see what I would do in that area? Yeah, I definitely want to get to the Finns for AoE 2. I think that could be really interesting, and I'd have to dive into it a bit to see what I could pull out. I think for Age of Mythology, they're even more likely, but I think they fit for both. Northern Europe in general, for sure. Yeah, there's more to be found there. I do actually think, even though it's less likely than the Finns, I want to propose an idea for a Kvens civilization as well, who I believe are related. And yeah, besides that, there's also some other potential Northern Europe, actually not even potential, I think that there's some other Finno-Ugric peoples who could fit quite well. An Estonian civilization, for example, feels appropriate to me. Maybe a Permian one as well, like I mentioned in my Slav split video, even though, of course, they're not Slavs. Robert says, I've been working on a Civ 7 Finno-Scandic Civ pack. Sounds pretty fun. Yeah, how is Civilization 7, by the way? Is that out? I know that people were like freaking out about the art for a little bit, and I'm sure that it's going to have a very different feel to Civ 6. But yeah, I'd love to hear your reviews. What do you guys think about Civ 7? I only just learned about Civ 6 like 5 or 6 months ago. I mean, yeah, I knew it existed, but I only really learned about it properly through that video I did. Proc says, Newlandese call their language Nitlansk. Yeah, Hanne says Finns would fit mythology better than H2. I agree, but I think they could fit for both. Robert says, I like the design of Civ 7 kinda, but the game has de nouveau and insane prices. Yeah, that's a bummer. You can use every leader with every civilization? That's wacky. Oh, it releases next month. Okay, so it's not out yet. But yeah, there's clearly some strong opinions about it already. Napoleon, Emperor of India. I kind of like when games get experimental. It's not something I want to see every single game do, but I wouldn't want to, especially for a game like Civilization that has so many entries, you kind of have to start iterating, especially because people will already, like there are people who still just play Civilization 5. Because that's their favorite. And then there are people who love Civilization 6, and so people will kind of settle into their favorites. Kind of like how I only play Age of Wonders 1, but I know people who love 2 and 3 and Planetfall. And I don't think I've heard anyone who loves 4, but whatever. Just how it goes. Eric says, I think if we were going to Northern Europe, we'd getting the Danes and the Swedes with all of them. The Vikings getting campaign, new civs would be based on. Yeah, almost certainly that. Though I would love to see a 4th civilization. I haven't loved how we've been only getting 2 civilizations plus a rework in DLCs. I want to get 3 plus a rework. Pretty please. At least give us the option to randomize. Yeah, I agree with that. Duke says I suggested fins for AoE. Suggested fins for AoE3. Yeah, that seems like a very good fit for them as well. Proc says Mezzo DLC would be a good idea. I agree. I actually think Mezzo DLC is the second most likely. In my opinion, I think that the most likely DLC we will get will be something that gives us Jurchens, Tonguts, Khitans, even though I think that the Tonguts should be different. They should come in a DLC with Tibetans and some other Himalayan peoples. But whatever. I know that's not a common opinion. And I think that the second most likely is a Mezzo DLC, and the third most likely is West Africa. That's my bet for the top 3 most likely, with plenty of other high priority candidates besides. Honda says problem with AoE franchise has 2 games based on the Middle Ages, but not the same way as with Paradox games where they are different time periods. I completely agree. I know a lot of people adore Age of Empires 4, and there's some things I like about it, but I have serious problems with that game, and one of the big ones is the time frame. I'm probably going to make a video whinging about it at some point. See if I can get algorithmed with the people saying, "Oh, what the hell? What do you?" But it's not a super high priority, but if you guys want to see it, I think that a video bitching about AoE 4 is probably in the pipe at some point. I will say, though, game has some great ideas, just issues as well. I would be so much happier with it if it actually focused on just a section of the Middle Ages, ideally like the early Middle Ages, and it was actually historically authentic like they frickin' promised us, instead of being Joan of Arc with a hand cannon. I'm pissed about that, man. I really am. Let's see. Dukes and Zapotex have... Okay. Proc says Zapotex have Owl Runner, Infantry Skirmisher Hybrid. I think I saw that in a Mantis build for them. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think it fits super well for the history behind them. I think it would make sense for them to have some more heavy infantry stuff. Plus, I think it fits better with the siege monk thing, or rather defensive monk thing that I think they kind of need to have. So yeah, I'm not sold on the Owl Runner unless I see some sources for it that are a little more compelling. Let's see. Eric said Tonguts and Xixia be different factions. No. The Xixia were absolutely Tonguts. And the Tonguts didn't really do enough before becoming Xixia to constitute having 2 civilizations. So I think it can just be 1. And when I say that, you know, it's more likely to be the case because I tend to be very generous when it comes to civ splits. Megos says, I like the fictional campaigns, but there should have been historical campaign context for DE. Sure. Who is it that posted sound in the presentation? I think that was Prox Warrior. If you can post the sound in the Discord, Prox, please do. That would be awesome. I want next AoE2 DLC to expand upon East Africa and give us a unique architecture. Yes, please. That would be fantastic. I would love to see East Africa. There's a lot of regions I would adore, right? East Africa is definitely a high priority. If I had like a personal list, that would be like number 5. Not because I don't like it, right? But because I like the others even more. And unique architecture, total sense. Give us more division of the Ethiopians. Give us the Swahilis, please. There's so many great options there. Jeanne d'Arc is such a weird design choice. Couldn't agree more, Megas. When I saw that, that was when my hopes for AoE 4 died. Let's see. So especially because she was already present in the standard French artworks and campaign. I don't know why people have such a boner for Joan of Arc. Like, interesting character. She's a saint. Of course that makes sense. But why is she like the person that people always do historical stuff around? I don't get it. Like, especially if you look into the history behind Joan of Arc, she was kind of a lunatic, to be honest. Interesting, very brave, very important to France, but kind of a nut job. Let's see. I think AoE 4 did historical authenticity very well, except those wacky civs, like not really accurate, but it does capture the feel. I think that were it not for those stupid alt civilizations that I hate, I actually think that historically speaking, it does a much better job than AoE2, which was one of the reasons I was quite hopeful for the game. But then they did those alternative civilizations, and God, it just went off a cliff. And there are other parts of the game that I'm not a fan of that really have pushed me away from it. With, again, a big one being that we don't need two games that are just generic medieval. I'd like it to be more specific, and I don't love the aesthetics and some of the mechanic choices. But again, that's just me whinging. AoE4 overall has some great ideas, and I think that it had serious potential, even if I'm not a tremendous fan of how it's become. Yes, like Kilwa, Mutapa, Yemen, Oman. Yes, the Yemen would be an awesome civilization. Omanis are a little late for AoE2, I think, but Yemen, what the heck were they? Was the specific name for them? I forget the specific name. As soon as I see it, I'll recognize it. But yeah, Yemen would be a great AoE2 civilization, as well as like Aksum as a subdivision of Ethiopians. Eric says Genghis Khan 3 should have Mongols, Jurchens, Tanguts, and a song civ. Yep, that's precisely correct. And she is a saint. That's why. Yeah, I know she's a saint, but France has tons of saints, including some others who were like quite impactful as well. The fact that she is the French like historical game representation rather than Charlemagne, for example, I don't buy it. At some point, you should sit down and make a list of every civilization in the world you should think should be in AoE2, just a list of names. Yeah, I would love to do that, and I actually would like to do that as a video at some point. Off the top of my head, I believe the number is around 200. Charles Martel is a way better character, completely agree. Or Odo, completely agree. Or Roland, or what was it, Louis the Ninth? I think it's Louis the Ninth. The one who was in the 1200s, the Capetian guy. He was really cool too. Can you do a fictional contest? Next, we'll see. What civ could the song be? I mean, I'd actually like the song to be like their own. I'd like the Chinese to be split into 3 or 4, maybe 3 civilizations that just represent the biggest Han empires of the. I mean, they weren't purely Han, of course. Tang, Song, Ming. Those are the 3 I think are super important. So I'd love to see a committed Song civilization. That sentiment of AoE4 is quite common. That it has some really good ideas, but the overall design feels off. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Him your rights. Thank you. That's the Yemeni guys. Him your rights. Always feels like AoE4 is much more focused about RTS than Age of Empires, which I don't like, but reasonable, I guess. Yeah, it feels like StarCraft 2. Like they're trying to capitalize on the esports market. And I don't know. I don't think that's what Age games are. I don't think that should be the priority with Age games. Like, we already have a great esports scene with AoE2, and that's despite it not being really an esports-focused game. But yeah, I don't know if I agree with that design decision. It feels like esports baiting. Maybe not a reasonable take, but I don't love it. Sinhalese, L'Avant-Garde. You could do Sinhalese as La Vanilla quite easily, I think. I don't know any ideas yet because I haven't done the civilization. I hate royal houses with a burning passion for AoE3. I don't know enough about the game to comment. Maybe add Filipinos to suggestions or even Albanians. Oh yeah, both of those are on my radar. It might take me a while to get there, but definitely on my radar. Shona and Congo in Africa. Yep, agree with that completely too. Okay, Sami reindeer herders, super cool. For the Balkans, I also want the Vlachs. I think that's one of the most commonly requested European civilizations that hasn't yet been added. Definitely on my radar. I've seen some AoE4 players wondering about who Jeanne d'Arc is because many players actually came from other RTS games. Many of them surprisingly low knowledge of history. That's so weird to me. Well, okay, obviously, she's some chick with a hand cannon. Duh. Maybe I should do a video about that. A video. Joan of Arc is overrated. I'm going to make a note of that. Do you guys want to see a Joan of Arc is overrated video? That's going to score me some points. Pardon me, my phone is buzzing. Let's see. Yes, that's why I never went into AoE4. It's a good game, but doesn't have the feeling of history like AoE2. Which is weird, because it's actually more authentic in many ways. Except the campaigns. The campaigns are ass, unless they've updated them. AoE4 variants are actually a great idea, but executed terribly. Ding, ding, ding. Couldn't agree more. Thule or Skraeling civilization, possible, but would be like -10 on the likeliness. Koreans were originally included with Conquersby esports bait. Yeah, I think I heard that before, or at least Korean market bait. Modern RTS focuses too much on the esports, which sucks because it destroys much of the fun when the dev team focuses on it. I think that is largely true. If nothing else, I'd like to see. Esports are awesome, right? But there are a lot of the games that have the best esports scenes, or rather most enduring and passionate esports scenes, are ones with zero attention to the esports side. I think, for example, Super Smash Bros. Melee, or Age of Empires 2 up until the last couple of years. Those games had fantastic esports scenes, despite the game having no focus on them whatsoever. And yeah, I think that there's a way to balance it more and still allow the esports to thrive. Because frankly, I love prize pools. Prize pools are good, but I just don't want the beautiful feel and the casual appeals of the game to just be compromised outright because of esports focus. In terms of DLC, one of the Balkans, Croats, Serbs, Albanians. Oh yeah, totally. No doubt in my mind something like that is an option. Just for me, it's a little lower down the prio list, though not super far down. I think we're going to return to Eastern Europe before the rest of Europe. All successful RTS through history haven't focused on competitive, but in single-player and cooperative multiplayer, with the exception of StarCraft 2, particularly. And I don't know, is the StarCraft 2 scene still kicking? I watched a lot in Wings of Liberty days, but then Heart of the Swarm, to me, kind of ruined the game. And it's 2 words, right? If any of you who played StarCraft, unless you played Terran, in which case, fuck you, will have the same reaction when I say the words from Heart of the Swarm. Widow Mines. Fuck that unit. That unit single-handedly killed my love for StarCraft. Maybe another series on your channel, AoE and Historicity. I don't want to step on like Spirit of the Law and Armchair Saurus's toes, but yeah, I think something like that could be fun. Try not to be offensive as possible. Not knowing Joan of Arc or Khmer Empire seems unbelievable to me. Yeah, completely agree, man. Wait, the Sami tribesmen were Slavs in the game? That's bizarre. We definitely need a Finno-Ugric civilization. Yeah, the V and V DLC. That's so freaking weird. AoE really needs more architecture styles and regional unit skins. Agreed. Couldn't agree more with that. I am incorporating choice and TC castle technologies to have a wide variety of gameplay. Yeah, that idea is becoming a lot more popular. Obviously, Rome at War popularized it, but there's more besides to it too, and I quite like the amount of depth you go into, my friend. Let's see. If they ever add NA civilizations, something like Mississippians, Algonquin, and Iroquois. I don't know about Algonquin and Iroquois. That feels a little late for me. I think we'd have to, if we had to add North American civilizations, it has to be Mississippians. Could be the Haida or Tlingit, and then maybe a Skraeling Thule civilization, and then maybe, I forget the name of them, in South Florida. There was a people there who interacted with early Spanish explorers. And then we could maybe also do some of the Chichimec neighbors in what is now Arizona and New Mexico. You would call them Anasazi, maybe Pueblo, something like that. That could be interesting. Let's see. Haudenosaunee are doable as civilizations. I don't know about that for AoE 2. Haudenosaunee are very AoE 3 to me because in AoE 2 time frame, they would only come in like the late 1500s, and they were pretty small. Like the Mississippians feel appropriate to me, but I'm not sure. StarCraft 2 got a little revival. That is, the patching is run by the community. Modding is much easier now. Thank God. I'm telling you guys, a good map editor and moddability is what makes games live. That's why Warcraft 3 lived as long as it did. Robbie and Spirit of the Law one, we'll see. He's a private guy. But I got that shout out, and man, that changed this channel forever. AoE 1 has Yamato as Huns. That's funny. Calusa, thank you. Calusa, that was the name of the South Florida people. Ainu would be a cool native alliance. Completely agree. Seminoles came a little after. I think they were a later tribe. Hohokam. Is that a better word for it than... Yeah, I guess Anasazi wasn't right. Yeah. Thank you. Mississippians could even be split in theory. Yes, they could, but it would be very hard to find the materials. There is a prior civilization before Calusa might be more appropriate. Yeah, so we'd have to look into that. So I think that, yeah, if we're being really broad, Mississippi, Tlingit, Hohokam, if a better name for a Puebloan, Calusa, Thule slash Skraeling, thank you. Those feel possible, with Mississippians being the most likely. Warcraft 3 lived until it was murdered by its own company. Yeah, exactly. Warcraft 3 is the strategy game that I have sunk the third most hours to, and almost all of it was in the mods, because the mods were amazing. A good strategy game lives and dies by its goddamn mods. Is it bizarre how AoE3 launched with no Native Americans when the game was about colonizing the Americans? Huh. Yeah, that is weird. I mean, I don't know AoE3 well. Were the Anasazi not how their enemies called them? I didn't know that. If that's the case, then apologies. But yeah, that's the name I've heard from them most. It launched with them just as minor civs in true colonizer fashion. Still so many tribes that need to be major civilizations. I agree. Okay. Yeah, that makes good sense. You guys have other thoughts? I'm happy to blab further about age games and strategy stuff and history and the like. It's fun talking with you all. Yeah, North American, I would love to see, I'm not going to say I'd love to see. I would like to explore North America further on the channel and maybe see a North America DLC in Age of Empires 2, but I do think it should be down the line. I think there's higher priorities for now. Not because North America isn't important, but just because there's so many huge gaping gaps that I'd like to fill first. What do I think of the Muisca? I don't know a ton about them. I know that they're Colombian, I believe, and that they were pretty worthy of the game. Maybe it could be something we add alongside, like the Nawat. What was the name that we gave them that Amiki helped me come up with? Well, anyways, some of the other Central American factions, maybe the Muisca could be among them, or we could add them in with like a South American civilization that gave us Wari and the Aymara or the Mapuche, stuff like that. I think Mapuche and AoE2 definitely should happen. There is also, what did you know? Mapuche, but don't know much of them before the time of Lautaro. I believe they were doing stuff before Lautaro. Mapuche feels, to me, like one of the most likely AoE2 South American civilizations, though admittedly they are most relevant towards the end of the time frame. The Incas need some, buddies, guys. I'll be posting total number of total Civ-specific changes over the year on the Discord later. That would be interesting to see. Mapuche definitely should be an AoE3, from what I understand. Makes so much sense. What if they did a completely new AoE2 DLC with AoE3 time frame? Actually, I would kind of like, I wouldn't like to see that yet. There's too much other medieval stuff we want to do first, but, down the line, I wouldn't hate it. Andean DLC. Mississippians did fight the Spanish, yeah. Lencas. That's Nicoya, Lenca. Different civilization than the one I was referring to, I believe, but still important. Imishi civilization. I think it's possible, but it would be very hard to research them. Oh, Cuscatlan. Thank you. That's what I was thinking for the Nawat. An AoE 3 DLC and AoE 2, and spit in the face of AoE 3 that is right there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Muisca should come with the Andeans. In fact, I talked to a native Muisca person that has loads of sources. Ooh! If you can get sources off of them, Amiki, we can make that happen. I think that was awesome. Kuikuro. Never heard that name before. But yeah, jumping back to the Imishi Ezo Ainu civilization for AoE 2. I do think it is possible. I think it would be very hard and would be a very unlikely civilization. Like a 1 to 0 on the likeliness. But still, I would love to do it someday. Let's see. AoE 2 has new skins for the ancient Civ expansion, but the regular old Civs share the same skins as the Mesoamerican civilizations have with swords and crossbows. Okay, take notes. All doubters who continue to say, oh my god, developing new skins is so expensive. If they can do it for Chronicles, they can do it for the base game. Just saying. Yeah. What about Haida? I think the Haida or the Tlingit are the second most likely North American civilization. Maybe third. Imagine AoM Mythology 2 with civilizations based on mythological cultures. I don't know. For me, I think there's too many real-world cultures that I'd want to see. So unless Age of Mythology 1 got a lot of development and we kept getting more real cultures, I would personally be reluctant to have one based in fantasy cultures until the real cultures were explored more thoroughly. At which point, sure. State of the Civilizations from Ornlu. I don't know. I haven't followed those for a little while, but it could be fun. I've seen the Italians in this channel split to Lombards, Venetians, and now Genoese, but there could be looking at the Tuscans. Oh yes, I actually think that the Italians can be split far more than I've talked about on this channel. I can see as many as 9 to 10 candidates, maybe even more. The Quikuro have the advantage that the unique unit is already in game, the Amazon archers. Oh, so is Quikuro, is that the name of the Amazon civilization I've heard about? I'd love to hear from you guys who know more. How much actual meat is there behind that? I want them to have separate looks for every civilization. Wouldn't that be glorious? For now, I will content myself with regional skins. Even if it's a paid DLC, I would not care. I would love that. I think it would be awesome. Avalon civilization with Knights of the Round Table. Yeah, I think that's the sort of thing that I think fits base Age of Mythology 1,000,000 times better than the Atlanteans. 1,000,000 times better. In fact, I actually think it's one of the more likely new cultures that could be added, though probably they would base it on the Britons or the Welsh or something like that. Haida would fit better in AoE 3. That's definitely definitely true. But still, if we're talking about North America civs that could fit for AoE 2, I think Haida are one of the more likely ones. More heroes and scenario editor units are needed. Agreed. Best I could tell, Azul would probably be a cavalry archer civilization. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, Avalon could work for Age of Mythology since Atlantis is there. That's the thing, right? Atlantis is such a garbage civilization, but Avalon would make way more sense given its actual grounding in the era and direct attributions as being a civilization. Atlantis was, again, a literary device that then a bunch of medieval dudes 2,000 years later seized upon in the 1500s. That doesn't feel mythological to me. That feels like fan fiction. Could we be getting a civ split for the Italians? At some point, absolutely. I think Mongols did mounted archery better than the Japanese. I don't know if you could necessarily say that. It depends on what goal you want to accomplish. The Japanese mounted archers were incredibly effective. That was the main role of the samurai, after all, for many, many years. But the Mongols used their mounted archers in a very different manner than the Japanese did. So I don't think we can necessarily compare them directly in that way. The myth of King Arthur is at least real and wasn't made up in the 19th century. Ding, ding, ding. Though there are people talking about Atlantis as early as the 16th century, even if it was still goofy. Selenite civilization for Age of Mythology? I've never heard of that in my life. What the heck is that? They should do family tree story mode to retold like they did with the Black family. You know, I'd actually kind of dig that. You know, I think it would be kind of fun to do that, even though they did try to do that technically in Age of the Titans expansion, which I didn't love that campaign, mostly because I freaking hate the Atlanteans. But yeah, Age of Mythology's campaign being fictional, I don't mind, though I would love to see way more direct myth references, or at least adjacent myth, like mythical battles that are actually mythical, or even better, entirely separate myth campaigns. A Chronicles DLC set in Renaissance in Italy. That sounds awesome. Have you guys read the comic Camelot 3000? No, unfortunately. I've never heard of it. And then Quikuro founded the famous Kuhikugu site in Brazil, not the umbrella for the big Amazonian urban tradition, though. I'd love to learn more about that at some point. I agreed about Mongols and Japanese comparison in mounted archery. Selenite is moon people. Oh, from a... Yes! That one. Thank you. I didn't know that was the name being used from. A True Story is awesome, and if you remember my Atlanteans video, that was one of the ways I said you could make an Atlantean civilization that was actually authentic to period sources that were actually mythological in a more proper sense. I love that idea. Pretty good name for it, too. Terms of umbrella, some people have suggested Tupi, but that's not 100%. Could you do a Theorycraft build on the Somalis? Oh, yes. Oh, frickin' yes. Somalis are a pretty, I'm not going to say a super high, but a pretty high priority for me. You will see them, you'll see them before you see North America, most likely. What about some new civilizations? Aragonese. Wouldn't you know it? One of the contest entrants was the Aragonese. And the Spanish changed to the Castilians. Oh, yeah. The Spanish definitely need to be subdivided. There's a lot of subdivisions that need to happen, but there is a couple of completely new civilizations as well that wouldn't technically be subdivided from anything. How much did Americas influence the Atlantean myth? No idea. I don't think very much. Mega says, I hate the Atlanteans being there, but they're my favorite civ to play gameplay-wise. Yeah, Exact same boat. Can't stand them from a aesthetic, story, mythical, anything perspective, but I actually think they're very fun. Damn it. Would love to see a how much can we add to Southeast Asia video. Planned. I'm not going to say planned for the super near future, but it is going to happen at some point. Castile and Aragon united, creating Spain at the end of the... Yep. Completely agree. Castile and Aragon should be separate. Really need Gilgamesh and Enkidu in Age of Mythology. It's one of my favorite myths. I have something on my channel coming for that in the not too distant future, because I agree my Sumerian build had way too little Gilgamesh and Enkidu. There's nothing we do about Atlantis. We should all just accept it and move on. That's true, but whinging is fun. Especially when we can actually use it to talk about history and mythology and give some context, as well as give options and advice for future. That's the whole thing about this channel, right? Even if I don't change a damn thing about the game, I don't care. Because if nothing else, I can share some stuff with you guys that I think are pretty interesting, and maybe subtly influence the culture of RTS and strategy games in general towards a more authentic backing. Have you heard of an obscure RTS called Impossible Creatures? Main gimmick is taking two animals and making different chimeras. What the heck? That's wild. I've never heard of that before. That's so cool. Atlanteans are Greek 2.0. I mean, if only they were that authentic. They're inbred Greek cousin. That doesn't make any damn sense. It's just, I think it's because the devs are like, well, people are dumb and don't understand world mythology, so let's just give them the ones that they've heard about before. Which I think is a shame, because there's definitely more to the world than just that, and I think it's a disservice to the rest of the world to have such a stupid amalgamation before other much more authentic civilizations. They're basically Romans. In units, largely speaking, and a couple of myth units, I would have, even though adding the Romans as the fourth civilization would have been kind of dubious, I would love to have seen them push more. I would far prefer a good, authentic, not just Greek 2.0 Romans to Atlanteans. Basic mainland, Southeast Asia, imagine like 3 more civilizations, Thai, Cham, and Lao. Yeah, I think there's even more besides that, actually. Could we be getting a Spanish Civ split video at some point? Yes. Impossible Creatures was amazing. Nice to see someone mention it. They should add saunas to finish Pantheon. Funny. Pretty much making hardcore scenarios and making insanely hardcore scenarios. Oh, God. You and your hardcore scenarios, Prox. Atlanteans use Mesoamerican-esque architecture with Roman gladiator-style units. Yeah, exactly. It's purely based on the nonsense that was peddled in the early modern era, which, again, to me, disqualifies it from the game. Island of California. The Chuyuko spider for Japanese Age myth. There's a lot of Japanese myth units. I can not name off the top of my head a bunch, but there are so many different options for them. I actually think it would be cool if the Japanese, like, one of their gimmicks is that they just had a shit ton of myth units. Way more than anyone else, but their myth units were, like, cheapish. What history channels do you follow on YouTube? I actually made a video about that back in the day. It's a good one, too. It's one of my world-famous tier lists. Let me go to my videos so I can show you. Jeez, can you guys believe how much stuff we've gone through over the years? This one, Robbie's favorite history YouTubers. I highly recommend this video. Copy link address. Go enjoy it. It's a good video. And since then, I've updated this list substantially, but I don't know if I would be able to say off the top of my head. There was a lot of good recommendations in the comments, too. As Mega said in their build, the existence of the Atlanteans makes the implementation of the Romans needlessly complicated. Indeed. Italian, split, Genoese, Phoenicians, Sicilians, Papal States, Tuscany, Milanese, Lombards, maybe Savoy. I think there's even more than that. Research about maritime Southeast Asia. Currently, you have the idea of Malay, Javanese, Sundanese, Balinese, Makassar. I think there might be more than that too, but I'd have to dive into it. Big spider myth unit will be fun and definitely will not be met of complaints of arachnophobia. Milanese might be better to avoid confusion with the Dark Age Lombards. I'd like to have them split personally. Didn't know you made one. Yeah, it's an older video. Well met, Robbie. If we met, I would drive you crazy. I'm sure. Gonna check it out. Thank you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's how much of a pain I can eat. Well, listen, my friend. I have children. I am very good at resisting being annoyed. Invicta is the best. Invicta's a great channel. Like them a lot. Sauna could unironically be a good building. Heal units, generate favor, train mythias. Totally. Kings and Generals is good. I would say that I have not seen Kings and Generals in a long, long time. I recently really heavily curated my sublist. Okay, brief side note. This is kind of weird for a YouTuber to do, but this is my YouTube page. Take a look at that. Kind of weird looking, isn't it? Do you know why? It's looking a little weird because I turned off all YouTube notifications. And I turned off all of the YouTube recommended videos, watch later, watch history, everything. I turned it off. And why? Because I was spending way too much time watching videos when I should be working on videos. Kind of dumb for a YouTuber to recommend this, but I would actually recommend you guys do the same if you ever feel like you're wasting too much time on the platform. And I installed a couple of plugins that help with it, because productivity is tricky. And I have an addictive personality, so getting addicted to watching YouTube videos has been a problem I've struggled with at various points. And if you've had the same issues, take it from this YouTuber. Turn off all of your YouTube notifications and install some plugins to help. What plugins do I have? I have Remove YouTube Shorts and DFTube, Distraction-Free YouTube. Definitely recommend those. In addition to an ad blocker, of course. Always use an ad blocker. Again, I say it as a YouTuber. Pardon the aside. Let's see. Jerusalem Crusader States. I did a video about those. Definitely much more about Southeast Asia, but I chose from larger Indonesian stuff. Yeah, there's a lot more to Southeast Asia, of course, but I would love to see the Malay split. Can recommend Sand Roman History. Sounds fun. There is History March, but more on battles of world history. Would love to see the Sulu, probably most likely Philippine civilization. I think there's a couple of Philippine civilizations that could be considered. Robbie showcasing his son's future playstyle. Nice. Minuteman and Milo are my fave. Minuteman is pretty fun. I refuse to watch any ads. Good man. Do not watch ads. Do not give me advertising revenue. The world is better without that crap. Let's see. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not interested in my sons becoming professional Age of Empires players, though I do fully intend on introducing them to the game at some point. Could we be getting a Southeast Asia Civ video? Absolutely. I'm not going to say exactly when, but at some point, I'd say at some point this year, most likely. Metatron is something I check for Roman, feudal Japan, and Middle Ages. Yeah, absolutely. His content has moved in a direction I'm not as interested in recently, just a lot more long-form stuff, but there's some of his videos that are absolutely crisp. Turned off my notifications and threw me out the live. Sorry about that. Sand Roman is pretty good. They cite all their sources. Yeah, we love when creators cite their sources. I try my best to. All right, my friendos, you guys have any other questions or thoughts for me before we sign off? I say we sign off in another couple of minutes. There's obviously so much more to talk about, and I hope that you've enjoyed the builds. I hope you've enjoyed participating in the contest. And while we're waiting for any final comments or thoughts or questions to roll in, a huge thank you once again to everyone who submitted builds. This contest would not be doable without you. It has been a treat to see what you have come up with, and I can't wait to see who gets voted on as the finalist. Remember, go vote, vote. Let me jump over and repost the link. Vote. Bam. I would love to see your votes. I can't wait to see who wins. Rise of the Rajas was apparently not enough. Yeah, nowhere near enough, but it was a good start. Anti Palasari and Aaron's Tavern for Finnish history. That's a good source. Thank you for telling me. Let me see. And then, fun fact: nephew now 21 played AoE2 in his time. That's awesome. It's a good game to get kids introduced in history. Please do lives more often. Oh, thank you for saying so. I will definitely consider it. Did enjoy, thanks. Great. More buildings, tavern to recruit mercenaries, and unique from other civilizations. So I have thoughts about this. I put a build like that recently in my Age of Wonders video, to talk about multi-faction mechanics. I do not think a tavern is appropriate for AoE2. That's much more of a near modern thing, the idea of mercenaries being hired for a tavern. In the Middle Ages, mercenaries would have been hired by lords and kings. And so I chose to have a similar mechanic be through a court building, which to me felt more appropriate and keeps the tavern stuff, while it's cool, for later eras. A side note, I was thinking, you guys, I had a plan to do a video talking about my finances on YouTube because I want to be transparent with you guys about those. Would you guys be interested in seeing that as a short live stream early in the new year with a big Q&A thing maybe to go along with it? That sounds like it could be kind of fun. Just like a general hangout, keep it on the shorter side. Ooh, actually, what am I saying? We can use that to announce the finalists. So yeah, I think we'll do another live unless you guys have strong objections to it. Hope to see more contests in future. Definitely planned. It's been fun hosting them. Am I allowed to vote for myself? Yes, I cannot. I cannot stop you. Chaps are good background noise. Jamming Counter-Strike with bro and friends. Nice. Hope you have fun doing that, Ivan. Have you played Rise of Nations World Conquest Mode? No, I have never played Rise of Nations. Game looks sick, and people have recommended it to me many times. It's a game I'd love to learn from and study. As I have mentioned, I don't have time to play very much. Many games in general, between YouTube and home and family and everything else. Court for Research, a mercenary campus production building. Could do something like that. You'll get the rest of your family into history one day. Definitely should. It's an awesome topic. AoE3 is fun with really good mechanics and ideas, though you hate the card system and the sole focus on colonization. I think the focus on colonization, from what I have seen and learned about the game, is the game's biggest flaw. I'd love to see it as a more broad look at the near modern era, but I get they were trying to keep it limited in scope and with a cohesive narrative, but I think it's makes the game a little worse. We'll be getting another live stream soon. If you guys want one, I think it's probably a good idea. How about having your own intro? I've actually thought about it. Might have it someday. Have to make it nice and quick and goofy. Try streaming live in different times of day to reach people from all time zones. Yeah, that's not a bad point. It's mostly because of the limitations I have in my own time zone. And also because I found that when I stream later in the evening, my time, it locks off a lot of people who are in Europe. And I do have a lot of viewers in Europe, so I don't want to lose them. Rise of Nations, a mix between AoE and Civ. I've heard it's also like Empire Earth in some ways, which I know a lot about, even if it's not a very good game. It's a game I'm nostalgic for. Does suffer lack of variety. Yeah. Rise of Nations is cool, but I wish I had more civilizations. Creepy Rising isn't an intro already. Well, okay. Besides that, maybe a more consistent intro. Focus was turned away from colonization with the Europe DLC, with the home city cards are the biggest strength of the game. I actually really like the home city cards. I think there might have been a better way to implement them, but I really like the idea behind them of modular bonuses that you can kind of call in. I think that's really cool. I love modular bonuses in general, and I'm glad they moved more away from colonization. I think that if they had done that from the start, maybe the game would have had a little bit better footing in the established player base. Maybe. What do you think of the Suno song? I haven't seen it. I have been live streaming this whole time. Empire Earth is what got Megas into historical RTS. You know, that's the thing about the game, right? It's goofy, it's campy, it's dumb, but it does do a pretty good job of attracting attention. And damn, is it so clunky? Yeah, completely agree. But I'm pretty nostalgic for it too. Have you tried Arena of the Gods in AoM Retold? I have not. I have not been able to play almost any game, frankly. But how is it? Do you guys like Arena of the Gods? Seems interesting. Not definitely. If you had said to me, "Oh, you can add one new thing to AoM Retold," that would not have been it. But you know, better that than nothing, I'd say. Where'd the Battle of Vienna fit the best, AoE2 or AoE3? That's really borderline. I think you could do it in both, frankly. I think you could do it in both. I think based on current tech trees, AoE3 would be better because it gives you a better variety of artillery. But you could do it in both. Empire Earth was class. Oh, excuse me. Hello.
Can I follow you for about 5 minutes?
I'm about to sign off the stream. Can you hold off for about 5 minutes?
Sterling just pooped and Wayland is in the bath.
Die.
And so right now I'm having Sterling be with Wayland, but
Yeah.
I need to wash his butt.
Jeez. Okay. Here. I'll be right there. Pardon me, my son needs his butt wiped. If you guys want to tap out, don't worry. If you have other questions, put them in. I'm sorry for dead air. I will be back very, very shortly, okay? And then we'll sign off the stream. You're gonna have to get back into bed after we clean you up. All right, boy clean, back in bed, gonna finish up now.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for that.
It's okay, love.
Lee was downstairs.
I understand. I understand. Okay. Yeah. Pardon me. Sorry about that, guys. I am now back Reno. Final questions for anyone still around. Blah, blah, blah. Siege of Vienna historical map. Idea of home city cards were good. It was implemented somewhat differently. Totally understand. Let me see. Rest of historical RTS games got me into history in general. AoE, Civ, Humankind, Empire, Earth. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about historical strategy games. They pipeline you into history, which is awesome. Still decent, but lacks the oomph compared to StarCraft 2 co-op. Yeah, StarCraft 2 co-op I've heard was really awesome. I like Age 3's way of adding minor cultures in ways like native alliances and mercenaries. Pretty good. Good time to finish, it seems. Yeah, we're going to sign off as soon as I catch up with comments. Thank you to everyone who hung about. I apologize again for the dead air. Arena of the Gods is not as good as it could have been. I would recommend holding off playing it until it is improved or expanded. Fair point. Good night, Robbie and everyone. Good night to you too, Douglas. Robbie, do you think Magyars for Age of Mythology could be a good twist? It's possible. I don't know enough about it, but possible. Haven't been playing much games recently, having a lot on my mind. Notice Enclave is in the background. Yes, my Enclave book. Doesn't it look great? Shadows of My Time. Not sure what that means either. Okay, some steppe nomadic civilization with Tengris culture would be very novel and unique. Yes, I agree that a Tengris culture would be awesome. I'm just not sure if the Magyars would be the one. It would be awesome to have a couple Tengris cultures, frankly. Song lyrics, I see. AoE4 Mongol-like nomadism. Yeah, something like that. Tengri would be pretty awesome. AoE3 was neat. What put me off was its historical wackiness. Pikes and crossbows in the Wild West. Yeah, I can kind of see that. That's why I feel like, I didn't love framing it around the New World, but that's just me. All right, guys, I think I've caught up, and I'd say it's time that we sign off. Again, apologies for having to dip out, such as the fate of having children. The wonderful, wonderful fate, I should note. And I really look forward to seeing who wins the contest. Best of luck to the finalists. Huge thanks again for everyone who submitted. And if you guys enjoy the lives, let me know, and maybe we can do this a little more often. It's been a pleasure getting to talk with you all in chat. And yeah, we'll see what the new year brings us, shall we? I have videos planned every week of the new year. To give you an idea, I have videos planned out till 2027. So there's a lot more content. We'll see if I'm able to get to all of it, of course, but I'm pretty confident as of now. We've been doing well on the channel so far, and all of it is thanks to you guys being so contributive and following through and watching stuff and leaving comments and being part of it. It's been fantastic. So thank you for making this year a special one. Can you believe how much we did this year? We like almost quadrupled in size this year alone. Just mad. Well, anyways. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. As always, my name is Robbie Howell, and ciao for now. Good night, good day, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year.